Welcome to Trivial Debates.
Good evening, and welcome to Trivial Debates. This is episode number 3, I believe.
It is.
Oh, it's a landmark episode. That's what that is. I'm your host this week, Jody Simpson, and I have some great debaters. Let's not make
Master debaters.
I wasn't going to go to the master debater joke, but let's do it anyway. I have to my immediate right, Jeff Mader.
Yo.
And then I'm going to go to the left just to kind of mix it up a bit.
What?
No, you're going to be last this time, okay? Because you always seem to get that first or second slot. Kevin Millard.
How's it going?
Welcome. First time in, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a virgin. Oh, that'll be fun. Anyway. And then, of course,
Who else?
who else? But, what was it? Underscore, no, what was it? Your Twitter.
Super Dave Mader.
Super Dave Mader, which happens to be Dave Mader.
Drinking some wine.
Drinking some wine.
I'm sophisticated tonight.
Oh, you're sophisticated.
I just came back
What
from-
kind of wine are you drinking? And did it come out of a box?
It came out of a box.
It could be that sophisticated. Some of the best wine comes out of a box. So, anybody who's new to this recording, or this podcast, I guess, so to speak, we debate things. You guys have all pre-picked answers to a question, and I have them all here, so I know if you're lying, which is always good.
If we try to change on the fly.
Yeah, if you're like, oh, wait a second, shit, that was really good. I didn't know he had that one, you know.
Just came to me.
Yeah, exactly. So, without any further ado, I think we should just go to the first one, unless we
Yeah.
have anything else to say.
No, six.
Anybody want to sing?
Are we doing speed round as well this week?
Absolutely, we're going to do a speed round.
Because we're trying to get this show not to be
Well,
3
I'm
hours
going to tell you right
long.
now. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm in charge. All right.
You're the captain of the
I'm
ship.
in charge. We're not going to do this bullshit Mader show that we did last time, where it took like 3 times as long. No, I'm just kidding. It probably will anyway.
Probably will anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, we're trying to keep the round, because we've been doing an average about 20 minutes around.
Oh, God, easily.
I think we want to try to get to 15 minutes around.
Yes, because by that point, you were already sleeping on the bus if you were listening to this podcast.
Yeah,
So-
even if you listen to the first part on the way to work, if you have an hour commute, and the second part on the way home, you would still have another 40 minutes probably to listen to the next day. So I think we're trying to get to within an hour and a half to 2 would probably be a good target.
And another point to just point out is this is the all Burlington edition.
Yeah,
We
no,
don't have anybody from anywhere but Burlington this time. So that's
yeah, no
interesting.
outsiders.
This is a complete Canadian content, this one.
Yeah,
Last week we had some Americans. They were terrible.
they were
but, you know.
trashing up the joint.
They were really, you know what, I was thinking about moving. It was getting really bad, yeah.
American only won 1 point last week. So
That's true. The Americans only did get 1 point.
It was a sympathy
However,
point.
one of them didn't call in until 3 questions in.
that's true.
Yeah.
And he almost won a couple.
Fair enough. All right, so let's move on to our first question, which was a very, very tough question. What is the best film based on a video game? Now, the answer obviously is none. Okay, but
I had to really think hard.
absolutely, and that was kind of the whole point of the question. I think we're going to start off today with Jeff.
Okay.
So, Jeff, what was your pick?
I picked Lara Croft Tomb Raider 2001, the first one.
Or better known as Grace Vandex.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Or Big Boobs, I call it.
Big boobs,
Big
yes.
boobs.
Boob Raider.
Big boobs and booty shorts.
Yes.
Tomb Raider, yeah, for sure. The reason why I chose it was I think it's kind of like the most exciting video game movie that they adapted from a video game to a movie, as not most true to the video game, but I think it's the most entertaining watch. They kind of stole elements from Indiana Jones and kind of like James Bond. But those are all present within the video game. But I think why I like it the most as a movie, it's a fun watch. It travels from England to different parts of the world, in Asia and Africa. So it's just a fun kind of adventure movie. It was the #1 financial success of any video game adaptation up until Prince of Persia came out. It is the highest grossing movie with a female lead to that point until Aliens with Sigourney Weaver, which is many years before. This is the highest grossing. Next
That's
movie.
quite a feat, really, when you think about
with
it.
a female lead, and I think now Hunger Games has probably surpassed that by a lot. But at the time, it was number one. And I just think overall, I think Angelina Jolie paid the most tribute to the character of Lara Croft. She really nailed it, and I think a lot of video game critics actually gave her praise for that. And she said she knew nothing about the video game, but she loved, like she said, she really focused and studied for the role and really tried to make sure that she paid homage to the character as much as possible, which most people said she did. So
She showed up with boobs, like...
Showed up with boobs, and they paid her, like...
It's like, here, I'm
15 million.
stacked. Obviously, I've paid homage. You know, it's like...
what more do you want?
Pointy pixelated boobs. That would be great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jeff. All right, I think we're going to go... Who should we go with? Kevin is still on his first beer. I think we're going to wait. Should we wait? Should we wait, or are you ready?
Sure. I can go.
Are you ready? Okay, then let's do it then, Kevin.
All right, I picked Resident Evil
Ah.
because I actually prepared for this. I watched it, so I suffered.
You watched
I
it?
suffered
You watched
for this show.
Now, we're not talking about the other Resident Evils. We're talking the first
The
one.
first
right?
one.
Okay,
I've never
fair.
seen any of the others. That was the first one.
Consider yourself very,
lucky.
very lucky.
This movie is not just cliche of its genre. It has all the cliches of its genre in it. It has the Lawrence Fishburne style black lead, who is just a shit-kicking guy. It's got the obligatory shit-kicking, full of attitude, take no shit, Spanish woman. Latino
True.
woman. And what else can I say?
What
Zombie
was her
dogs. Inside Out zombie dogs.
That's true.
It's also got the...
Dogs always looked like it just had bacon on it, though, didn't it? Like,
The
did you ever
zombie
notice
dog?
that? Yeah, it just looked like it was bacon dog.
it looked
You know what I
Inside
mean?
Out to me.
Did it? All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it kind of looked like...
I haven't seen the movie in ages, but
Yeah.
awesome.
And it's got the old chestnut of the hero who cannot remember who they are, but figures out that they're a huge shit kicker by kicking somebody in the face.
What better way? You know, like it's that simple. What better way?
What better than that?
Exactly.
Yeah, it ends with everybody dying except for one person. It's got all of the cliches from the genre. It crams them all into one movie.
So would you say that it represents the game well, or
I don't know.
you don't know? If the man is anything, he is honest. Fair enough. All right,
Maybe.
well, let's go bring some sophistication in the form of wine out of a box
Yes.
to this debate, because let's face it, we need it. Kevin's now on his second beer, so
Yeah, it'll get
it's,
better.
it's time to get prepared. All right, so Dave, what did you pick?
Well, I picked the classic arcade game, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat! Right?
Wow, that was something. When you say that was something,
It was something.
yeah. Yes, okay, let's go. All right.
I think that this is the best movie based on a video game for a lot of reasons. I feel like it is the most faithful adaptation to the comic book medium without being fucking...
I mean the video game.
without being pure awful. Like there's actually some redeeming qualities to this movie.
Not awful would be one of them. Okay.
It's not awful.
No, that's not one of them.
I think I think it manages to you get a sense of what the game really was.
All right.
The whole like versus matches and two people fighting and giving kind of a story to that game that's been adapted further into sequels of that game. So that movie was obviously based off of the game itself, which there wasn't that much to it. There was a bunch of characters, and there was maybe like a little bio in like the booklet that would come with the game, telling you a little bit about Liu Kang and Raiden and all these
Yeah, like
guys.
the arcade had like a one-page description of what was going on, basically.
Yeah, it was a very basic story. There's a tournament to save the world.
Yeah.
From getting conquered and whatever, but the movie expands upon this and gives a little bit more depth and has a lot of fun bringing in the characters and having them kind of team up together. Like we have Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, Johnny Cage, who were like those were some of my favorite ones. Seeing them sort of become a good guy team and pitting certain other characters as a bad guy team.
Right.
It's I think Christopher Lambert is bad. As bad of a Scottish
Played
guy.
Raiden, didn't he?
He was Raiden, and as bad of a Scottish guy
Should have been the Highlander.
as he was Highlander, he was actually pretty good in that role as as the god figure, as like that kind of mentor. Just that voice really sits well with that character for me. And you every time he speaks on camera, you're like, yeah, what's Raiden going to tell them? Because he better help them because they're clearly fucked.
And the other thing that was also interesting about Raiden is he was the god of electricity, wasn't he?
He was kind of like a Thor. Yeah.
He was harnessing the lightning.
But he would wear like that big rice hat.
You're welcome, Dylan, if you're listening. I got to throw in the lightning
electricity.
and electricity comment from last week. All right, anyway. All right, Dave, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. So I think it's time for a little bit of rebuttal. Okay. All right, so I'm going to actually start with you, Jeff.
Okay.
Tell me why your movie is more exciting than, let's say, the Resident Evil movie. Why was that?
Okay, I can.
Because that was one of the points that you made was very exciting movie, traveled around the world kind of thing. What made that different than, for instance, Resident Evil?
I think for Lara Croft Tomb Raider, what you really get out of the movie is you get this sense of adventure. It's a mystery. You want to find out. I watched it the other night where she's got this clock that she finds from her father, and she's basically
That was the second one, wasn't it?
That's the first one.
Oh, was that the first one?
Yep,
Okay.
it's the
I'm
first
getting
one.
them mixed up.
We're talking specifically about the second Lara Croft?
The first.
No,
Or you're pitching the first one, okay.
First
Yeah.
Lara
Yeah,
Croft.
let's pitch the first one. Yeah.
So she, her father, who's her father in real life, John Voight, dies, and in a wall she finds a clock that just starts ticking all of a sudden. So she figures out within the clock is another clock, which is kind of the key. She gets a letter from her father, and you kind of go on this adventure with Lara Croft, which I think is actually kind of, while watching it, you're interested. You want to know what's going to happen.
You actually care about the plot.
Yeah. You're invested, I feel like.
All right.
And I think Lara Croft's actually a really cool character. So all of a sudden you're like, okay, tell me more. And then you start getting into the Illuminati, and you start getting into actual tomb raiding, which is what Lara Croft is what she does. She raids tombs. Go figure.
Bond was in one of them, wasn't it? Daniel Craig, wasn't he in one of them?
Daniel Craig.
Which
is
one was he in? The
the
first one or the second one?
The first one. Yeah. He's in it. Alex West is his character. I watched it the other night. This wasn't very
Did
good.
you?
But you know what?
That's not helping.
The thing is, none of these movies are very good. But I think Lara Croft Tomb Raider is the best movie of the ones we're talking about, and why it's better than Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil. I hate those movies. I mean, I watch them and they are just terrible. Like they're so.
So what is it that you hate? Is it the genre itself, or like the horror genre? Like,
No, it's just Resident Evil. Like those 4 movies or 5, whatever they are, all of them are just.
But he's pitching the first
he's pitching the first one.
I get okay. The first one.
Which let's be honest here. The first one was the best one in the whole fucking movie franchise.
Really?
It was.
And they made 5?
They made that many
Jesus.
more because.
That's how good that first one was. I
Well,
guess.
you got to remember, Sony owned the rights to it, and let's face it, Sony will throw money at anything.
Yes. Yes.
Let's face it. All right. Thanks,
well,
Jeff.
no, let me continue.
Oh,
I just wanna say one more
we're
thing.
still going. Okay.
For Resident Evil, can I argue against Mortal Kombat, or is it just the question just Resident Evil?
I don't give a shit. Let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay, for Resident Evil and Mortal Kombat, both of them I just feel like are nonsensical plots. They kind of like are just like who's gonna die next, and then you kind of get to the end. Especially with Mortal Kombat, they're just little shorts of compiled into one movie where it's one-on-one fighting. There's very little talking. When Dave was saying Raiden, you are interested, you're like, oh my god, someone is actually talking in this movie. There is no talking going on. It's just fight sequences.
Fair enough.
So I don't know. I just think the plot and the writing is the best for Lara Croft by far of the movies we're talking about. Resident Evil, I just don't like it, so I can't even argue against it so much because I've watched it once and I will not go watch it ever again.
Fair enough. All right. Kevin, tell me why Mortal Kombat is a piece of shit compared to Resident Evil, because I think that's what you
Because
think.
I never felt compelled to ever see it ever.
Which, Mortal Kombat?
Yes.
Did you play the game?
Yes, I played the game. But a movie based on a fighting game? Ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Oh, come on. You're telling me the Dead and Alive movie wasn't good? Like, come on. No, that was terrible.
I don't even know what
Mario
you're talking
movie?
about. I never...
Oh, the Mario movie was...
The Dennis Hopper Mario movie. I was hoping someone was going to argue that, but
Actually, I was really hoping somebody would throw that down, but nobody did.
I
And
don't
you know what?
Mortal
It's
Kombat,
probably
what
a
is-
good thing.
What is even the point in the movie? Like
they
you
have to
said,
save Earth because like there's Mortal Kombat tournament every year, right? And if they lose 10 in a row, Earth gets conquered by like this intergalactic mystical
Shao Kahn.
Shao Kahn, right? And he's gonna steal your soul.
Well, I think you just made my point. That sounds stupid.
No, it's all about like Liu Kang. His brother get like what's the guy's name? Shang Tsung, right? Shang Tsung?
Something like that.
Right? He's the bad guy. He is a great bad guy in that movie. He's like, I've got your brother's soul, and he's like, no.
Yeah, he was like, your soul is mine.
Like Resident Evil is stupid. I grant you that, but you fight everything in that movie as well. Like, not only is it all the cliches, you fight everything. You've got the machine at the beginning that they have to get through that turns the guy into the waffle pieces.
Oh yeah, that thing was kind of cool though.
You're fighting it's biological warfare, and then you're fighting the zombies that biological warfare creates. It's got everything. You're fighting everything. What are you fighting in Mortal Kombat? You lose 10 rounds and the Earth explodes?
Well, it gets conquered by the Netherworld or whatever. It's really Mortal Kombat is like an old kung fu movie, right? But it happens to be set around this motif of the game. So they're borrowing clever devices and plot points from the game, the little plot that existed, and adapting it to just a fun action movie where there's a lot of great kung fu and fighting sequences. And it was kind of an American mainstream adaptation of that medium, and that's what made it a good movie. Remember that
I've never seen it, while you were saying it's all fighting, no talking, that drives me crazy.
It's very little.
That's why I think most movies today are too damn long.
Was it there was no talking because they wanted to subtitle it and they couldn't, or was it just no talking?
It was going to be subtitled too?
No, I don't think so.
I think there's a fair amount of talking in this movie. Like,
you think so? Okay.
I think that there's like sometimes it feels like there's an obligatory fight that's just forced upon you. And they don't
sometimes.
What I would change about that movie I would go more into what the tournament was, because it seems like who faces who doesn't really make sense. But they use like certain lines from the game, like finish him and flawless victory.
Well, I remember that one track that they had just used like all different voice clips from the actual like it's like finish him, Sub-Zero,
round 2,
Scorpion,
Scorpion.
like that. Yeah, it's like and all that. So yeah, I get you on that one. All right, I'm going to give you a couple quick seconds because everybody kind of ambushed you. Yeah. So I want you to tell me with your sophisticated wine in hand.
Yeah.
You say, Jeff and Kevin, you're full of shit, and here's why.
Tomb Raider is just a shit Indiana Jones ripoff. It's not even that good of a story. I was never compelled to watch those movies. I think that they're it's just a terrible story to adapt. I'm like, it's just a lady running around a cave looking for like treasure. And adapting that into a movie is stupid.
What's wrong with watching that? She's hot as hell, and
she's not that hot. The video game version of her boobs are too big to even be.
Okay, but we're talking about the movie.
I'm like, who cares?
And that was Angelina Jolie, and that was pre-losing the boobs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, these were fantastic to look at.
It's not really, like, there's nothing about that movie that's like, this is a great video game movie. I'm like, this is just a terrible movie. That's all it is.
So you're saying it's more along the lines of, it's not necessarily a movie that has really embraced the video game as it is. It's just using the property of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas mine is completely different. It's actually bringing that video game into a movie. Now, Resident Evil, just too many cliches, too many overused plot points. It is one big cliche right from the beginning. The Umbrella Corporation and.
Well, to be fair though, like when you look at all those older, like the 80s and 90s, like Dawn of the Dead and all that shit, they really were cliche movies, and I think that was kind of the point, in my opinion.
Was it?
Well, maybe not, and you guys tell me that, but
I know I'm arguing against myself here, but
like,
I don't think that
a lot
was
of
the
that
point. I think they were trying to make a good movie.
Oh, were they? Okay, fair enough. And it didn't work out well. Okay,
it's not that good of a movie. It's better than Tomb Raider. I'll give it that.
Resident Evil?
Yeah.
Not even close.
Okay, past Angelina Jolie aside,
yes.
What is one thing that you can tell me that is better about that movie than, let's say, Resident Evil?
In Tomb Raider?
Yeah.
Just the overall action sequences, I think, are also better. I just think it's fun. Resident Evil is like you watch it and you're just like, it's dark the whole movie. You get to the end and like you said, one person lives and you're like, okay. And then they make 4 more movies off this.
But we are talking about only the one.
Oh, I know.
And they did make a second Tomb Raider movie.
They did, but
so I don't know if they're making a third.
A lot of people said it was an improvement.
They made a second Mortal Kombat movie. So all of these movies got sequels.
They made 3 Mortal Kombat movies.
They did make
They made Annihilation, and then they made some other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I think was like a straight.
They should have
video.
stopped at the first one, or they should have put more into the second one. The second one's not good, but that doesn't mean that Mortal Kombat, the first one, wasn't good. Everyone kind of dug that movie who was like a teenage kid in the 90s.
Fair enough.
I'm just saying, all right, both are Resident Evil and Tomb Raider, what they have, well, actually all three of these movies have hot chicks fighting things.
True.
I just think my movie does it the best.
Okay.
And I think if you look at it from just a movie perspective, not just, video game adaptation, I think that is a fair argument here. It's not about what's adapted the best, it's just what is the best video game movie.
So, okay, so let me just kind of quickly just go into what I found with my research. So all three of your movies on Rotten Tomatoes, not a single one of them made it past 30%. Oh, sorry, no, 33. Two of them actually did make it to 33% on a Rotten Tomato meter. The lowest scoring one out of all three of them was actually Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
I bet.
Funny enough.
Yeah.
However,
That's surprising.
the stat that's more important to me is actually the audience rating, not the Rotten Tomatoes, because the Rotten Tomatoes rating really is it's the rating that all the reviewers gave, right? Which, let's face it, they're all going to be brutal to these movies, right? Like it's that simple. When you look at the audience rating, you see it's a fairly close thing. We rate anywhere between 48 to 68%. Okay, the highest rated audience, as in the people that enjoyed it the most, was actually Resident Evil. Funny enough. The close second was actually Mortal Kombat, funny enough, and Tomb Raider actually got third. Now, that being said, I'm down to 2 at this point, okay? You're fucking done, alright? Mortal Kombat was a piece of shit, and you did not get anywhere close to where I thought you were going to go on it.
Where do you think I was going to go on it?
You turned it into, in my opinion, you turned it into the... Oh, well, they were trying to make it like that. It was supposed to be like that. No, it wasn't. It was fucking terrible. They tried their best and they failed. Come on.
My movie came out before either of these ones.
Okay, this is true. Mortal Kombat did come out in 95. Tomb Raider and Resident Evil came out in 2001, 2002, respectively.
Video game technology
came out
was
before
not
all of them. It doesn't
as...
make it good.
What's that?
Plan 9 came out before
Never
all of them.
seen
It
that.
doesn't make it good.
Video game technology was not as advanced yet. Video games were not as sophisticated yet. It was one of the first times they were making a movie about a video game, period. It was probably like one of the third times, right? Like what, Mario Brothers came before that? And
Street
what?
Fighter.
Street Fighter came after.
Street Fighter was a piece of shit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like,
I think
I would rather watch Mortal Kombat than Street Fighter.
I almost picked
I agree
Mario
with
Brothers
that.
just to see if I could do it.
See, Kevin's sole strategy here is he's going to try to fuck with you guys as much as possible. He doesn't actually believe it. He's just going to fuck with you, right? All right, so I have it down to 2. We're going to make it really quick because we need to keep moving, all right? Because we know we always have this problem. We got it down to Lara Croft and Resident Evil, all right? 1 minute or less.
Yep.
Tell me why Tomb Raider deserves to have the win here.
Tomb Raider by far deserves the win because, like I said, it made the most money of any video game we're talking about, movie we're talking about here.
Yep.
It had a hot ass girl the whole movie. She's decked out in guns, shooting things, raiding tombs. It is a fun action movie. I don't get bored at all during the movie. Get to the movie, I'm pleased.
Now, are you pleased in a sexual way, or
why not?
okay?
Why? Well, why not?
So what it comes down to is you can throw one off on it, right?
You can throw one off on it if you want. I mean, I just think it's a fun movie overall.
Right,
I think they include a lot of things that other movies have done, where you throw in stuff about the Illuminati, you throw in stuff that with the alignment of the planets, and just the whole story overall. I think where you're going and you're trying to find different puzzle pieces that eventually come to the end of there's two halves of a pyramid. You put them together, and then that's when the alignment happens. And you got the father-daughter thing going on there too. So overall, I think it's fun.
Fair enough. Kevin, to you, sir. Tell me why Resident Evil was better than Tomb Raider.
It's a difficult one, but Inside Out Zombie Dogs, guy turned into waffle bits, and Tasteful Side Boob.
Tasteful side boob. All right. You kind of threw that in there. I wasn't
And that's
expecting it. Was there any side boob in your movie?
There was all sorts of side boob.
Was there all sorts of side
Yeah,
boob?
when she's doing the
But was it
climbing
tasteful?
on the rope.
Was it tasteful?
I think it was.
Was it tasteful?
Was it like a fine wine from a box?
I think it was sort of tasteful. It was about 30% tasteful on the Metacritic rating.
All right. So, have anything else there, Kev? Or are
No,
you good?
that's it. I'm
all
good
right,
with that.
fair enough. I'm going to have to give the point in this case to Jeff, because the reason why is because Jeff focused not only on the action of the movie, but he also focused on the actor of the movie. If you came to me and said there was 2 female leads in there, you would have probably got the point, but you didn't. All right, so fair enough there.
Whatever.
Because realistically, you had Mila Jovanovic, which, let's face it, isn't bad to look at.
Now that it's all over, I gotta say I fell asleep about 3/4 of the way through.
Fair enough. So, point in this case is going to Jeff.
I did
Jeff,
not
well done.
enjoy it.
No, really. Yeah. See, I actually enjoyed the first Resident Evil movie. The rest of them weren't that great.
Was that like the best case you could make for that movie?
I picked it, and then I went, maybe I should watch that.
Maybe I should watch that shit again. And you know what? All honesty aside, Mortal Kombat was one of those kind of campy movies. It was one of those movies that is so terrible it's fun to watch.
Well, I just looked at the
In my
first question.
Like if
What the
you're
fuck?
12 years old when it's a great movie.
Yeah. But like your point of the story, just to be fair, your point of the story, there was no fucking story in that. Like it was like a 3-second story. Like it was.
There was
they're gonna.
It was a
take over the
very
fucking-
vague story.
It was, yeah.
It left a lot to the imagination, which only could have been expanded upon in sequels if they had put some money into them, but they didn't.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Either way, boys, that was a really, really hard question in my opinion. That's kind of why I threw it at you.
It was good. It was good.
All
I
right.
want to
fair
give
enough.
a good answer for
The
it.
next one, however, I think you guys are going to all be all over it, which is our television area. So the next one is, what is the best TV/streaming? Because, not everybody watches TV anymore, so I wanted to make sure we kind of put the Netflix in there as well, or whatever, your Show Me or whatever else. What is the best streaming show currently being produced? So this is a show that has to be actively produced right now, not a rerun, not, Seinfeld over and over again on Netflix, that kind of thing. Honestly, all 3 of your guys' answers, in my opinion, were fantastic. So let's hear them. I think we're going to start with Dave this time. So,
Okay.
Dave, what did you pick?
I picked The Walking Dead,
Oh.
the zombie apocalypse thriller, which I'm.
Wait a minute. Isn't that Resident Evil?
This is right.
We're bringing back zombies in this episode.
Well, to be clear, Resident Evil, well, we don't really know yet. And anybody who's listening that watches The Walking Dead, we might be ruining some stuff for you, and I'm going to try not to. But we don't really know the whole source yet. Right, so it's one of those things where Resident Evil, you knew it was the Umbrella fucking Corporation, those little bastards, reanimating lives and
I'm
shit.
just making a joke.
Fair enough. Yeah.
The Walking Dead is the closest. Well, it's based on the graphic novel, and I think what the graphic novel The Walking Dead tried to do was really show a long story version of what George Romero created. With the Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Those were explored in those kind of exploitation films of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And showing how that could be adapted to a long-running serialized story. So creating that protagonist, showing how he survives. They are the traditional Romero zombies. They're not like the Resident Evil zombies that are kind of
One
like.
thing that's interesting about that show, though, is the fact that they don't refer to them as zombies.
No, walkers.
Which is interesting. They
go
all
to their
the groups
way.
have different names, right, for the...
Well, they set this story, this world of The Walking Dead, in a universe where George Romero never made those movies. There are no zombie movies for them to base it off. It's not like when you watch a vampire movie and I know what a vampire is. There's always been legends about vampires, and now vampires are real. Oh fuck! Yeah. It's not like it's set in a world where no one's ever thought of the idea of the dead coming back to life and trying to eat people, which is the case to most zombie flicks is the case. I don't think I've ever seen one where they go, "Oh, zombies! That's crazy." I never thought that would happen for real.
Yeah, I guess the term zombie doesn't really get used in Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that. They don't really.
No,
not in the movies.
They
They just
call
call-
it Dawn. They just call them the dead, or
They just call them them,
walking,
or
them,
those things, or
fair enough.
whatever it is. It's a long-running, serialized story, incredibly dramatic. It's got some of the best moments in TV, one of the biggest viewerships going today. It has a companion show that comes on right after, where the fans can... Talking Dead, which is a great show where they can celebrate what just happened in that episode, where the characters are going. If there was a particular character that died, they can celebrate that actor's work. It has got one of the best ensemble casts, if not the best, today. You can argue other ones that were shows that have finished, but right now I don't think there's a better one than The Walking Dead.
Fair enough. All right. Let's go to Kevin next.
All right. Well, I picked Marco Polo. I haven't had cable in about 10 years, so everything for me is Netflix. So that's what I picked Marco Polo. It's a great story about It's
Is it about Marco Polo?
No, that's the great
perfect.
thing about it.
All right.
It's about his viewing or his experiences with Kublai Khan and his it's more about Kublai Khan and the war between him and the Chinese, and it goes into there's just enough nudity but not too much. It's tasteful.
It's tasteful side boob.
It's tasteful side boob.
Well, it's not side boob, but it's tasteful.
Are there nipples?
Oh yes.
Is there butts?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
we can't we can't stop the podcast for you to go watch this right now. Okay, like we got to carry on here. All right.
No, but it's a great look inside of what it took for a Mongol leader to run his country, and it shows his softer side to him and the totally fucking brutal side when he has to kill his brother for just slighting him.
Okay.
And it's just a great fucking show. It's
a great fucking show. Fair enough.
I don't know. I'm going to argue with that.
Well, how can you argue with that kind of comment? You know, like I haven't seen it myself, but it's one of those things that I keep planning on seeing. But
I haven't watched it either.
yeah, fair enough. All right, Jeff, tell it how it is, sir.
Oh, I have a great fucking show with nipples and butts as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
Mine doesn't need mine doesn't need the shock value.
It's called Game of Thrones.
Did you
Maybe
just
guys
say
have
the
heard of it.
fucking Walking Dead doesn't need shock value?
Mortal Kombat! All right, anyway, Jeff.
All right, so Game of Thrones does a little bit of both of what these shows do, but way better. It does the fantasy aspect, which Walking Dead kind of does, and it kind of sets you back in a pre-modern time, obviously, which is, it's a different universe, but it's also kind of modeled off the medieval times. The reason why I chose it is the art direction, the acting, the lengths they go to make that show awesome. They go to Iceland, Malta, Morocco. They go all over the world to make that show look a certain way. Just the CG they put into it, so authentic looking. The story, overall, they jump, all over the place. They're in the north, they're in the south. They just really bring everything together and really make you invested in almost all these different characters at once, which is a really tough thing for a show to do. If one show is like just going for one character, that's easier than going for 20 characters at once, which Walking Dead tries to do. But I think, do we really care if Beth dies, or
Spoilers.
I prefer it.
I think we're getting to the point in Walking Dead, at least I am, where I don't care who dies. Anyone dies, fair game. If Rick died, I'd be like, great. Whereas in Game of Thrones, they will rip your favorite characters away from you, and you're like, no.
One thing I have heard about Game of Thrones, and honestly, I have all 4 seasons on Blu-ray, have not watched it yet.
Oh man.
Okay, they were lent to me by a friend, and I still have not got to it. I'm waiting for Walking Dead to finish, so then I can start that on the hiatus kind of thing. Yep. The one thing I have heard is the fact that they really do, exactly to your point, they really do fucking kill off everyone in that fucking show.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it myself, and I don't know if you have. Or,
Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
All 3 of you guys have seen it, right? I haven't seen
I've seen the first season, read the first
fair
book.
Enough, fair enough. But I've read part of the book, but I haven't read all of it. That is one of the things that are like a main point to that show is literally they'll kill off like somebody who's the most fucking loved character on the show, and it's like, bang, you're gone, fuck you, that kind of thing. So I do understand your point.
And they shock you when you do it. It's just one of those things that I think is so great about the show. It's so they arc it so well that when they do it, it's like out of the blue.
Fair enough. All right, great. So let's go over quick stats on this on these shows that you guys picked. Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, both 5 seasons apiece right now. The Walking Dead is wrapping up its 5th season right now.
Game of Thrones about to start the 5th?
They're about to start the 5th, yeah. So it's Walking Dead's a little bit ahead of times. Marco Polo unfortunately does have a handicap here because it is
1 season.
They're just doing the 2nd one now, I think. Yeah. So it's. However, I went back to Rotten Tomatoes again because it's an interesting way to see how it goes. Critics wise, Walking Dead and Game of Thrones almost deadlocked when it comes to that critic wise. Yeah. 97% and 96% respectively. Okay. Marco Polo, not so good.
To be fair, I've never heard of Marco Polo.
It's a Netflix exclusive.
Yeah, it's a
so
Netflix
you'd only
original.
catch it on Netflix. So
How many seasons?
One.
they're currently,
Just the
there's
first.
one published and then they're on their second.
So it hasn't had time to get the hype
Hasn't
yet.
had time to get the whole hype, so we have to take that with a little bit of
Yep,
grain of salt
definitely.
as well, right? So they have a 30% 2 seasons though. So it's, and to be fair, I could only get ratings for 1 season because the second season isn't even out yet, right? So I took the average of the ratings for all the seasons,
Right.
to take that into account, because I think we can all agree, anybody who's watched Walking Dead, especially the second season, fucking terrible.
Oh.
The second season was
What, Walking Dead?
yeah. the
They
second-
they slashed the budget of the show.
Oh yeah, they slashed the budget and doubled the episodes, which was just brilliant.
Yeah.
You know? So, but they also thought it wasn't going to live, right? They thought that show was fucking dead, right?
Right.
It was dead to the
And they
water.
tried everything they could to kill it.
They really did.
And they wouldn't die. Because
But
it's
in a way,
that
that's a
good.
point for him. Because
Sure.
realistically, that is a show that won't fucking die. You know, pardon the pun, I guess.
It will rise from the
this-
ashes.
Walking Dead.
Is the second season the farm season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The first season only had, what, 8 episodes?
No, it's the season of all the
Was it 6?
fucking
I mean, it feels
drama
like-
very short.
around
It was like
relationships.
Yes.
It's the female season. It's
It is the
it's
female
for all
season
the
by
fucking
far.
relationships and
It's
Jesus.
a difficult season, and
It is a
I will give that point.
Okay.
But
Either way, we're getting off topic.
Yep.
As for the audience ratings, they're actually very close. I was actually really surprised, especially with Marco Polo.
When I
thought-
was done Marco Polo, I was sad that it was over.
Yeah, and that seems to be what kind of the consensus of that show is. In one season, they've got an audience rating of 93%, which is actually pretty decent when you think about it. 93% of the people that visit Rotten Tomatoes as a not reviewer believe that they like the show. They enjoy it, right? So that's not bad. Game of Thrones, 97%, which is pretty high. Fuck, that's barbaric high, you know. But Walking Dead, and I was actually surprised. Walking Dead is 89%. Which is actually lower,
Within
which
the
I was
highest.
really surprised. I thought it would be the highest, but it really isn't. But you have to take into the fact that this is a rating over the five seasons. That second season, brutal. So
Well,
I'm
it's
sure,
just-
I'm sure that brought down the value. It was brutal.
it was just long.
It was long. It was drawn out. No one gave a fuck about the farm. Like, it was terrible.
Where's Sophia?
Who gives a shit who's in the barn? You know what I'm saying? Like, and Sophia, yeah. What was it, like 8 fucking episodes? Where's Sophia? And then it ended up being, where's Carl? You know, it's like, oh, fuck off. Just stop losing these kids.
What?
They're obviously dead weight.
The redeeming quality of that season is Herschel.
True.
Right, that
Herschel, very
character.
powerful character.
Right, yeah, and he becomes very important.
He was almost the moral compass as well of the show. It
Yeah.
kind of brought it back to the I'm human, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I think he's a fantastic actor.
Oh, absolutely.
His name's escaping me right now.
Geez. I can't remember the name. off the top of
But
my head.
the guy who plays
We'll
Herschel,
put it in the show notes, though.
like the cast itself, and they don't have to rely on dragons and all this other shit.
Now he's throwing down the dragons. I knew
Right?
somebody would bring that up.
That show is all about the acting, and like these are like Shakespearean trained actors. Andrew Lincoln, the guy who was to carry that show for the most part,
Yeah, he was-
who plays Rick, he is
He
brilliant.
was off Broadway, I believe, but he did do some stand-up.
Yeah, he's funny. He can play serious, crazy, and you watch this transformation over these 5 seasons.
Well, even when the guy shaves, it's a fucking transformation.
Yeah.
Like it's like who the fuck is this guy? Why is he 20 years younger? You know, it's amazing how grizzly he can be, but also how clean he could be as well.
And like, I think that the relationship between him and Shane, and then the loss of Shane at the end of season 2.
That wasn't much of a loss, in my opinion.
I think it's important to show him like kind of losing his humanity, and that's been kind of the arc of the show as it's been going. And I think Shane was, even though that he had it coming,
Okay.
that was important to
Fair
what the
enough.
Walking Dead.
And
journey is.
spoilers, yeah. If
Spoilers.
if you're not that far into Walking Dead, let's face it. I don't know what the fuck you were doing, but you should have been doing that. All right, let's get quickly to Marco Polo. Now, he mentioned some things along the lines of, like, you know, the characters itself. I'm not familiar with Marco Polo, so you're going to have to educate me a bit more. How is the acting in the show? Like, is it top notch?
Absolutely
is it shit?
excellent.
What is it?
Kubla Khan is whoever, I don't know his name who plays him, but he is unfucking believable.
Yeah.
Totally believable as a Mongol leader.
Really?
Yes. And
See, now that's a hard position to play. You know what I mean? Like, that's not to discount the dragons and whatnot, but you know that
because
is
he's a guy
hard-
that truly cares about his people, but he'll crush their fucking skulls in a second, and it shows that kind of juxtaposition and how hard it is to rule that in that time. And I think it gets a little extra point for actually being history rather than
So how accurate?
story.
How accurate are we going with that show?
I don't know.
No idea. Okay, fair enough.
I'm sure
Jeff-
every show makes
Jeff
up
is
a
a little
little
bit
bit
more
of
of our
stuff, you know. It's not.
History guy, so I would say,
For what, Kubicon?
Yeah.
yeah. So
Marco
obviously
Polo-
you haven't seen it, so I guess you really
I
can't
haven't
compare.
watched
but-
it, so yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, they put some love story shit in there, and even Marco Polo's actual writings are not. Well, he dictated them,
Yes.
and then they were transcribed
Somebody
and changed,
fucked
and
them
nobody
up
can
and-
agree.
Nobody can
over
agree
what-
on
I
what
mean,
the
there's
original
one
is, yeah.
version of his writings that's 50% larger than another version, right? So
Yeah.
nobody can decide what really is true. about
But let's
what
face it,
happened.
even though we are watching these shows, we're not necessarily looking for historically accurate. We're looking for entertainment, right? Like
No,
that's
it's
really
entertainment
what we're
based
at.
on historical
Fair
events.
enough.
It's
fair
not.
enough, fair
so-
enough. And let's say Walking Dead really has a disadvantage there, obviously, and so does Game of Thrones. You know, we can't prove dragons or
it's
around,
not
we
best
also can't-
historical show. It's just best TV show. period.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying is
No,
we can't
absolutely,
use that as being a point, really. You know what I'm saying? Jeff, tell me, how does your show compare to, let's say, Walking Dead, where are the characters as the one thing you did mention was that the characters do get killed off quite regularly. Do we have time to actually establish good storylines with them, or is it just literally like fucking here's the guy, next week he's dead?
Well, no, I think what Game of Thrones does really well is, with season 1, Ned Stark, the whole season's basically about Ned Stark. And at the end, spoilers, he gets his head chopped off. I don't want to ruin the second season for Kevin.
No, that's fine. Go
Okay,
for it.
but second season, same thing. The whole story is based on Robb Stark, and he gets killed at the end of season 3. But again, they spent a lot of time with his character. And not that they don't spend time all over the place, because they do, but the majority of the time is spent on the character basically that they're going to kill, but they don't want you to know you're going to kill him because the story's so centralized on that character. You can they can't kill this character, and that's
And then next week they do.
It'd be like they do. It'd be like at the end of season 2 they killed Rick and they're like go. Of Walking Dead, which I don't think they could have done. Everyone would have went, what the fuck? Or if they killed Daryl in Walking Dead.
I think if they killed Rick during the second season, they probably would have killed that show completely.
Yeah, that would be the end of the show.
Like, let's face it, the guy really is the center of attention in the show. It's now kind of broadened out a bit, but the first 2 seasons definitely are Rick. Like, they're all about Rick. They're about Rick and
The first shot of the show is him waking up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's the protagonist. What I'm going to say about Game of Thrones is that it's an adaptation of novels, a series of novels.
Absolutely.
Where Walking Dead,
4, I believe. 4?
No,
6.
Is it 6?
Six
Okay.
novels.
Excuse my ignorance.
Intricately connected, way more content in terms of than The Walking Dead is. But
yeah, and you're also basing The Walking Dead on the comic book series, which it really isn't. It has kind of spanned off from the comic books. I actually read most of the comics as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, to your point, it's a little bit different with the material they have to work with, obviously.
But my main point is that HBO and what they do with that Game of Thrones show is they only do 10 episodes a season, or something like that. And they have to leave out a ton of stuff, a ton of really good stuff, and a ton of great characters. Whereas The Walking Dead is a longer series. It's 22 episodes a season. They have more time.
Say too long.
Huh?
It's more boring. At least Game of Thrones.
Some might say too long.
It's awesome. It is awesome. Every second, every frame is amazing. Walking Dead, they're okay, killing some zombies through the fence today. I don't know.
And let's face it, that has happened.
That's what you have to do. It's hyper realistic.
This is true, it is. Yeah, for sure. To be quite honest, guys, all 3 of you have made excellent points. I don't think there's anybody I can obviously just quickly jump out and say, you're the winner, because honestly, all 3 of you have thrown something at me. And Kevin really is the underdog in this scenario because he only has 1 season to work with.
Can I throw one point out?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. It would really piss off Jim Edelston if you give me the point.
You know how much
suppose that's valid.
You know how much I enjoy pissing off Jim Edelston. But I'm not going to use this. I have to be impartial. Okay. So this is what we're going to do, guys. We have a 15-second spot to explain this show to a newcomer. You have 15 seconds to tell me what's fucking good about the show. Just sell me on it. 15 seconds. Jeff, go.
Game of Thrones?
Yep.
Oh man, it is an amazing show of the fantasy world that it creates. the political controversy, the way they just can rip a character from you at any second, just the world they create in just a short amount of time is amazing.
Perfect. Dave,
Do you want to see an accurate representation of what the zombie apocalypse is going to be like? Watch The Walking Dead. You will get to see compelling drama with intense action and amazing effects.
all right.
If you want to see what it was like to be a Mongol leader, you'll watch Marco Polo. All the brutality, all the softness, all the love for his country, but he'll still crush a guy's skull in. It's great, and you'll want more when you're done.
All right. This is a tough one, guys. This is probably going to be the hardest one of the night for me. It's really hard to judge this because I have two shows that both are 5 seasons-ish. Obviously, Game of Thrones only about 4. Okay, you have the 5th season already going, almost, or well, we're going to be in the 6th season soon for that one.
Yeah.
You have the 1 season. Okay.
That's why you want more.
That's
You're not tired of it yet.
I'm giving it to Kevin. That was actually a really good point. I liked how you did that. I'm going to give it to Kevin, and I'm not going to say that anybody really is a loser in this scenario. Okay.
Except for me and Jeff, who have better shows.
Okay. The whole point of the question was to get talking about what is the best show. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The best show is subjective. We all know it. Okay.
Yeah.
Your best show is not my best show.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Honestly, between all 3 of your guys' shows, I've only seen one of them, but I fucking love Walking Dead. Okay, and your point about everything being boring, I don't find that to be the case.
Walking Dead, I
However-
loved through the first season.
However,
and
I
then
will
couldn't-
say the 2nd season was kind of like that for me. Okay, but it redeemed itself very well in the 3rd. 4th was fucking killer, and the 5th is fucking fantastic in that show. So I don't know if you've gotten that far yet. Or not.
I'm on 5th. I'm on the second half of the 5th right now. I
Really?
haven't finished
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
But
I'm up to date on it right now, but it is a good. I'm gonna give it to Kevin because he was the underdog number 1. Okay, but he also sold me on the fact that we got history in there. We also have a lot of brutality. We have violence. We have everything that makes the show entertaining, and in my opinion, that is what a show is. If it's entertaining, it is the best show, plain and simple. And honestly, I feel bad because all 3 of you, I should give you a point, but I don't think I can do that.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
sometimes you can give 2 people a point if you want.
Can I? Okay, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
Well-
I'm still not going to go there though.
No,
Because I'd want to give all 3.
Sometimes people can team up too, I guess.
Fair enough. You can team up and split a point.
If it's too close where 2 people are so much better than the other one and you can't really decide, you can give 2 people.
All 3 of you had made fantastic points. All 3 of you hit the exact mark, and all 3 of you nailed. Every time I was giving each one of you guys one of those symbolic points for me, you all tied yourselves, which it was, in my opinion, that's the whole point of the show.
I wanted the point to piss off Jim.
Okay, I will tell Jim that The Walking Dead is a fucking fantastic show, and he needs to fuck right off.
Okay.
See, I would have
Fair
to be
enough.
careful because I was going to go hardcore on Walking Dead because I knew it would have pandered to the audience of the Jim Edelson. I was going to say Walking Dead's the hot dog.
For all we know, Jim Edelson is our audience. Okay, like it's that simple. And Jim, if you're listening, you can fuck yourself. All right. On to the next question, and I will tell you right now, one of you two are probably going to make the point up in this scenario because
I'm not going to win
Kevin's
this one.
fucked on this one. All right.
What do we have? Music?
Let's put it this way. We went for yes. This is the question of what is the greatest band with at least 4 members in it?
What?
Okay. Yep.
Oh, motherfucker. I thought it said more than
You
4
worded
members.
this very poorly
Yes.
for the
Oh,
record.
I thought it was
With-
more than 4 members.
Read it.
Oh shit, you're right. It does say more than 4 members.
Originally, I thought
Okay, you know what?
I
I'm gonna give it to each 4 or 5 because that is my fault. Okay, and yes, you definitely picked 4, but in the span, it actually is more than.
Because I messaged you to clarify. Like, does this
You
mean 4
did,
or
and
5?
and what I meant was 4 or more.
Yeah.
Okay.
You meant 4 or more,
Oh,
but
son
it
of a
read
bitch.
like
Okay.
5 or more.
That being said,
That's all right.
just
I
to
still
keep things
suck
fair,
at music stuff, so it's all right.
To keep things fair, if he wants to change his answer,
No,
he
no,
can
it's
before
good.
I get to him. All right, I'm
Okay.
okay with that. All right, as long as he doesn't pick one of your guys, obviously. Okay.
Sure.
In that case, I'm going to go with one of you two for front. So I'm going to go with Jeff first. Jeff, what is your greatest band with 4 or more members? Even though I did poorly write that question.
That's okay. I picked a different band at first because I thought you originally meant more than 4 members.
And I can see how you could have interpreted that from
Yeah.
that question. So I apologize for that. I am a fucking failure, and I'm going to go home and cry.
But so once
But
I
not
found
right
out
now.
I could pick 4 members, I decided on Pink Floyd.
The Floyd. Okay.
The Floyd. Now,
Tell me why.
Okay, it's real simple. Well, it's not simple, it's more complex. But the reason why I picked them was because...
So is it simple or complex?
It's both.
All right.
It's simple that they are the best, I think, album-to-album band ever. They just wrote constantly great albums. They, with the start, well, I mean, I know Dylan will argue with me on this, but the start with the Pipe at Gates of Dawn, 1967, with who did they have? Sorry, Sid Barrett. Sorry, kind of just I mind. All right, Sid Barrett. They really started the underground London scene of prog rock. And really it just blossomed from there. That band, they really just went all out, and just it took them a little while to get their tracks going. Until about Adam Hartmother, and they did Metal, and then they did Echoes in Live from Pompeii, which was amazing. They play in this amazing stadium. So overall, they just had this great sense. Each one of them was amazing at their instrument. You had an amazing drummer, Nick Mason. You had Richard Wright on the pianos. You had David Gilmour on guitar, and you had on bass and writing most of the songs, Roger Waters.
Okay.
The band just constantly made great albums in the 70s, back to back, and they paid a lot of homage to their roots and paid a lot of homage to Sid Barrett, with which you were here. My favorite album, Animals, came later on in the career. Once the band started to break up a little bit, they were still making amazing music. The Final Cut in the 80s, Momentary Lapse of Reason, and Division Bell in the late 80s, early 90s, just constantly went throughout all 3-4 decades. So, and still going today, still making them right now.
This is true. Just to give a little bit of recap for our audience, band founded in 1965, still current. Okay, they're still making music. 17 albums, studio albums total. Okay, Dave, tell us what your pick is. I already know what it is, and I knew what it was going to be before he even sent it to me. But
I'll tell the audience who my pick is.
That's the way it needs to be.
My pick is the Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Fab Four.
Fab Four.
The British Invasion. The greatest band of all time.
Right.
The Four Apostles. Mark, Luke, John, Paul. There's no Mark, but...
I was wondering where he's going with that. Like, who's Mark? Is that like the first guy or what? Like, did Lennon show up later? Or? You know what? I don't know a lot about the Beatles. I know who they are, and I've listened to some of their
He
stuff.
played tambourine.
He was the guy that played the slide.
There was a Peter, though, and he was one of the apostles, right? These are the Gospels.
Where's the Pete?
These are the Beatles. They are the greatest band ever. They influenced so many different bands. They made some of the biggest songs of all time, still being used all over the world in countless commercials and all kinds of different.
Well, to
media.
be fair, though, Pink Floyd.
Who's he?
That's what he always says. When
I know. I know, but let's face it, like Pink Floyd, just to be fair, a lot of their music is used in commercials and stuff too.
It's not just commercials. Their entire catalog is epic. And it's not... You just take Lennon and McCartney and what they did together, it's amazing. They have some of the biggest songs ever. But George Harrison and Ringo Starr... Well, not so much Ringo. But George...
Fuck Ringo.
But Ringo, a decent drummer, and he sang a couple of those songs really well. I think his contribution to the band is the least, but I think he added quite a bit in his own way. George Harrison, fantastic songwriter, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. We're talking Hey Jude. We're talking The White Album. We're talking Let It Be. Like, these are iconic things in British and American culture, way more than Pink Floyd, who I consider more obscure. Not as mainstream and not as successful.
Okay, perfect. All right, Kevin.
Beatles are all right, I guess. They're kind of boring, but I picked the Diablo Swing Orchestra, and I'll just go over this quick so you guys can duke it out, because no one's ever heard of them.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's an odd mix of metal and opera with a Spanish flair.
Really?
Yes, it's very weird. Every song is sort of challenging, and it's awesome. Everybody in the band, and keep in mind, I thought this was supposed to be more than 4 members.
Fair enough.
Every member of the band, you can tell, just knows their instrument like no tomorrow, and they play together.
How many are in the band total?
Awesome. I have no idea.
No idea.
A ton.
Is it like...
He can't win.
Yeah.
He can't win.
He's not going to win.
No, I'm not going to win. It's
He's
a ton
fucked
of them.
anyway.
It's a huge band from Sweden.
He won with Marco Polo. Never count people out.
This is true, and that's the greatest thing about this show is really it comes down to me being I'm fucking God. That's really what it comes down to. So it's how I fucking see
But I don't think
shit.
anybody's ever done metal, opera, Spanish flair. I just don't think that's.
I can
ever
think
been
of
done
two of
before.
those, like for
What?
instance, Metallica S&M.
Yeah, definitely Metallica.
Metallica S&M, great album in my opinion. Fantastic album, and probably one of the only Metallica albums I give a shit about, other than a couple of the other ones. But all right, Kevin, thanks a lot. Just to give you guys a quick summary, and I forgot to do the summary after Dave. The Beatles, 1957 to 1970, 20 albums.
13 years.
Yeah, but I want to hold
13
your
years.
hand.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah. I get that, and Diablo Swing Orchestra, to be quite honest, I couldn't get a hell of a lot of information.
No,
I
you
think
can't.
they were formed in 2006, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
They're still making music today, 4 albums.
4 albums.
4 albums is what they have listed. So
Interesting.
whether those are all
They must have
available
just
here,
come out with one.
there is one that's current. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there is definitely a current album. All right, well, let's face it, it's down to 2, boys.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a hard call.
My team is like the Avengers. We have 4 powerhouses.
Now, is this the cinematic Marvel universe,
Yes.
or is this the comic Marvel universe that we're talking
Let's say
about?
it's the cinematic one, because you know why? Each one of those artists, even Ringo Starr, who's the least of them, but
I thought I had a all-star team here.
we have an all-star team, but he's like Hawkeye. He's like, white. Yeah, they brought him in, but come on.
He's there, but you know what? Unless you can shoot the fucking arrow, you're done. That's oh yeah, all you're there is to just get taken over by demonic possession. Right?
Yeah,
That's
you're there to eat up some time in the movie.
Ringo, go sit over there and do your shit.
My guys all went on to have massive solo careers. Who? Lennon, huge. Imagine,
Not, well, okay, true.
right?
That was pretty big.
Not the
Another
Yoko Ono
terrible
plastic
fucking
band.
song.
John
That was
Lennon's
terrible.
solo career was very short. It was in the early 70s.
Well, he
didn't make
died.
It was short due to circumstances out of his control, though.
Well,
got
He was
fucking killed.
assassinated. I can't help that. But he died in what, 81?
80.
80.
Yeah, 80.
So he only had 10 years after the Beatles, and he still did a fuck ton in those years, despite being probably on drugs a lot and drunk a lot.
He took 5 years off in the 70s. I'm just...
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
All right, so I have like the Iron
He
Man.
started back up in 75.
I got Captain America. I got the Hulk. I got the Super Team. Okay.
All right, fair enough.
The Pink Floyd. I don't know any of those guys' names. I've never heard any of their songs on their own. Did they have any?
No, they were a band together. Yeah, David Gilmour made an album about 10 years ago on an island, but that's not the point. The point is, what is the best band?
It's the greatest band.
And he's arguing for their solo careers now because can't argue well enough for what the Beatles did together. Now the Beatles.
Oh, I don't even. It speaks for itself.
It does not. You look at you.
Well,
Certainly does.
I will say 13 years, 20 albums. That's pretty impressive.
It's definitely impressive, but I would say that
Not
they
that I've
really
listened
didn't
to half
become
of them,
a
but-
fantastic studio band to the level of Pink Floyd until about 1967.
Pink Floyd is just better music.
Pink
It
Floyd
just is.
Yeah, Pink Floyd
It's more interesting.
is it's got something for everybody. It's an adventure. Every one of their albums has got a different kind of a theme to it, a different kind of you really dive into what they're feeding you. Whereas with the Beatles, you get a lot of jumping around. You get a lot of guys, 4 guys making their own song and throwing it on an album. Which doesn't mean it's not a good song or it's not a good album collectively, but Pink
So
Floyd,
you're saying it's a lot of the same then?
it's a lot of the same, but it's a lot of
And Floyd is more.
They are concise.
Spread
Concise. They play together. They made their music together.
Yeah, but the Beatles harmonized together. They did a lot of their songs are together.
They're probably the best vocal harmonies ever.
Just saying, if you look at a lot of their songs, especially with a lot of their albums, you'll jump from a Paul McCartney song to a John Lennon song. Like even Let It Be, you got
And
Let
they're
It Be,
distinct.
which is Paul McCartney's song.
There's
Then
enough
you got
variety in
Across
their
the
album.
Universe, which is John Lennon's song. You get their song.
He's making my points for me.
I'm just saying the best band of a band playing music together was Pink Floyd. Their music together was way better than the Beatles. You got Dark Side of the Moon, you got Wish You Were Here, you got Momentary Lapse Reason, you got Animals, you got The Wall. I didn't even mention The Wall, which The Wall was, they made a movie about it. The actual concert, when you went to go see The Wall, the whole concert, the whole wall moved. There was like a story.
What's this wall?
You were watching a story, and that's what the Pink Floyd really dedicated
So
themselves.
you're talking the actual the experience itself, listening live. is a different experience than what the Beatles would have been.
Well, the Beatles quit playing live at a certain point and decided to just shelter themselves from the world.
How could they help it? Beatlemania? I would go crazy. Like when you're that bombarded because you're that musically talented and they can't get enough of you. You have to seclude
well, let's
yourself.
face it. When they showed up in the States, it was a fucking big deal. Like it was a
big
massive
deal.
deal.
It changed America.
It did. Yeah.
Okay, Pink Floyd, not the same effect. Not as culturally significant.
I would disagree.
I don't know about that.
I would disagree. I think Pink Floyd had just a different take on that era.
So-
and it just spans over way more time, and it's just way better.
Yeah,
you know?
you mentioned with Pink Floyd, and I'm gonna be picking on you a little bit more because the way that Dave has presented his case, he has presented it exactly the way I thought he would, but that's actually a good thing for him because he got to all the points that he needed to get to prove to me that it was a band. So I'm gonna kind of throw the onus on you a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay. You did mention something that I caught, which was you said that it was a different style of music and there was a lot of variety and a lot of future bands benefited from that. So can you tell me a couple bands that you think are highly influential who were influenced highly from Pink Floyd?
Yeah,
That a lot of our listeners would know, let's say.
I'm trying to think exactly where I would even go, because I think you could point to a lot of different bands just in general, like just the way David Gilmour played guitar solos. I think you can look at, obviously like a Jimi Hendrix, and that was the start of the guitar solo, but he played it in a certain way where it's clean. It's he takes his time. It's patient. And I would say a lot of bands that did that. You could look at Slash from Guns N' Roses. You could look at Metallica. You could look at in the 90s. I think you could look at a little bit of.
But I don't think anybody at this table is going to argue that Pink Floyd is better than, let's say, Metallica. Okay, in my opinion, it's. Are you going to argue that?
No.
Okay. I don't think you are either.
You would say Metallica is better?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. So,
Okay. All right. I thought that's where you were
all
going
right,
for a
so
second.
I get the gist of what you're trying to say.
More mainstream.
So I'm going to ask you kind of the same type of question.
Okay.
Who do you think the Beatles would have influenced? Because I think one of the things that we need to take into consideration when we talk about the greatest band, all right, is how did they change the world? Okay. And one way that I could see is, like, for instance, influencing other music later on down the line, that kind of thing. So
Sure.
Who do you think the Beatles influenced?
Everybody.
Okay.
Every British and American kid with a guitar could not help themselves but be exposed to the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Canadians too. They set the standard. They took over Elvis. Elvis was number one. He was the king of rock and roll. The Fab Four come along. They unseat him. He couldn't. He hated it. Right? Like he was like, oh my God, who are these Beatles? I got to keep competing. Right? And he got a little older. They came in and they kind of broke up right at the perfect time. Right? When they needed to. I think the only regret is like we didn't get to see a reunion down the road. Where I think
that would be a little bit hard.
Well, if John hadn't died, right?
Yeah, if John hadn't died, it probably would have been different.
You think about why John, by himself, is so universally celebrated. On the anniversary of his death every year, there's that ray of light, of hope that goes up into the sky. Yep. That they are followed way beyond Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd is, like, the real rockers love Pink Floyd. It's not the Beatles that speaks to everybody. Everybody likes at least one Beatles song, I think.
With the research that I did, when I looked up, like, for instance, AllMusic, hits, stuff like that, sales, the Beatles far outsell Pink Floyd. But that's in a way to be expected because you're talking a very... I look at the Beatles music as a more mainstream type of music, whereas Pink Floyd, not as mainstream.
No.
Right? Okay. To be quite honest, I'm leaning towards the Beatles right now.
Okay.
Give me in, let's say, 30 seconds.
Yep.
Tell me why, when we think Pink Floyd, we think the greatest band. I want to know, sell it to somebody who doesn't know the Beatles or Pink Floyd.
Okay.
And it's going to make them run out right now and go grab an album.
I can give you a few things. They were one of the most, if not the most proficient at their instruments. They were so tight together. I think you were saying the most influential. They influence bands today that are just so into trying to play their best. Try to really hone and play amazing music, like Dream Theater is another band I would cite as influence. Rush, even though they're around the same time, I think they influenced each other. But I think it's the same kind of thing. Whereas the Beatles were, really influenced by the 50s, and they were playing music that was more, the 4/4 time, whereas Pink Floyd, they started to take it a different way. And it's really where music is today with bands, rather than the Beatles. I think if you really look at how musicians, unless you're talking about pop music, but I'm talking about real good music, not pop music. And
that's subjective, though. There's some people that absolutely adore pop music. They think that that is,
I think the Beatles. I think the Beatles had the perfect mixture of both.
But Tween Girls is a demographic that's going to get you selling albums. It's that simple. Right?
Some of the Beatles music's very poppy, but some of it's not, and some of it
true. There is some very true. Yes. There is some very dark music.
Yeah, and I think what makes them great is their diversity. Okay. They're more than one thing. I think that there's a bit of homogeny to Pink Floyd.
But I think we can say that to Pink Floyd as well, though. I think there is some definitive differences in some of the tracks.
I not too long ago tried to listen to the discography of the Beatles just to figure out what the hell this is all about, right? And I still don't get it. There's a few songs I really like that are really good, but I really don't get why they're so popular. But at the same time, I don't get why Pink Floyd is so popular either.
I have to give it to somebody, and I will say the two arguments between you two guys, you definitely brought up some good points. I feel between the two of you, I think Dave actually brought the point better. I think he really, number one, he's very passionate about the topic as well as you. But when we look at the greatest band, I have to take a couple things into consideration. I have to take in sales, which, let's face it, they fucking slaughter Pink Floyd when it comes to sales.
Yeah. Not even close.
Okay.
But
that's not the whole thing, right?
I didn't have to make
an audience. I will say all the audience ratings I could find, the popularity of the Beatles was something along the lines of, I think it was 89%. Pink Floyd was around 60. Okay, so there is definitely a higher audience for the Beatles. I think they can span into a much more broad range of listeners, whereas Pink Floyd's very. I wouldn't say it's not as broad for sure, but it's still has massive following for sure. I think overall, just point wise, I think I'm going to have to give it to Dave this time. And the reason being is just because I felt he really hit all the points as much as he could. You did for a degree, but I think you kind of backtracked back to a couple of things over and over again because we couldn't get to where we needed to get to. You know what I'm saying? Yep. All right, so I'm going to give that one to Dave.
Yes!
It would probably be the only point he gets this week, but we'll see.
We'll see. That's my first.
And actually, funny enough, you guys are three-way tie.
I've never won a music round before.
No, you haven't actually.
Music's always been I'm always at the bottom.
And that's why I'm never going to host again.
I can't believe you gave him the music one. That's what I can. He couldn't even tell
was a
you
very
another Doors song last week.
Yeah, but if he came up with the Doors, I would have just gave him the finger and given it to you automatically.
Very passionate argument.
It was a passionate.
I feel like I beat Jeff with I ran him over with his own car because the Beatles he loves the Beatles, right?
Yeah. How long did it take to come up with the Avengers analogy?
Yeah, you gave him the Avengers analogy.
To be quite honest, I didn't even bring that into consideration. Okay. It was such bullshit. I didn't bother to bring it.
I thought
that's why I won.
No, you won because you made very good points. And the way I look at this show, guys, is it's not always about what the common folk says. Okay, sure. It's number one. It's how I interpret your.
Whoever makes the best argument.
It's the best argument, right? It's not necessarily the right answer, but it is the best argument that wins. And trust me, last week I made some pretty fucking terrible arguments, and I still won, which was interesting. But that's to be said. But all right, next up is the category that Kevin is gonna love, which is sports.
Yeah, not really a sports fan myself.
No, not much.
Oh, advantage Maders.
The Maders are definitely going to have an advantage on this one for sure, but I think after that, you guys are going to be up for some real fucking problems. I can tell you that right now. Because Kevin, from knowing him for as long as I have, the man knows a lot about history, and he definitely knows a lot about the wild card question for sure. So this is going to be an interesting one, boys. So let's strap in and get going. So Kevin, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Now, what was your pick for the best Canadian-based franchise in sports?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Nice. Everybody's gonna laugh, but that's fine.
Okay, so tell me why we believe that then.
Because even though they're terrible
at present,
even
currently
though
at present, yeah.
They're fans, if you talk to a fan in private, they hate them. In public, they apologize for being a fan. And yet this is still the highest grossing team in the NHL. It is still the biggest money maker in the NHL, despite sucking. They don't need to win. How awesome is that?
Well, and to be fair, though, they have won. Okay, before 67, they have.
They are tied right now
They
with the
have
St.
13 championships.
They are tied with the St. Louis Blues for the longest drought
This is true.
without a Stanley Cup.
The Blues have never won a cup.
Yeah,
Period.
but the Blues also came after. They were
the Blues
after
right.
expansion.
and the Leafs won when there was only 6 teams.
Right.
So how fair is that, really? You know.
Well, I'm not going on their record.
No,
I'm not
absolutely
going
not.
on their. I'm going on best franchise. Franchise is business.
Franchise is business, and I was
Can
hoping.
anybody sell?
I was
can
hoping
anybody-
you guys would catch on to that.
Can
and that was
anybody
actually part
sell
of the
more
question.
merchandise, even though their fans seem to hate them?
Oh, fuck.
He's got a point, and I know you did get that. I think Jeff did. But
Nobody.
We'll see what happens.
They don't even need to win. As a matter of fact, they only.
But
need
I am
to
going
win.
to take into consideration
only
the
need-
actual sport itself. I'm
they
going
only-
to take the.
They only need to win just enough to keep the fans coming back. They keep selling out games,
Even
even
if they
though
don't
they
fucking
lose.
win.
No, they're the Flappy Bird of sports franchise.
Flappy
They are the
Bird
Flappy
of
Bird of
sport
sports franchise.
That is interesting.
You get, you know, they win a couple of games, you go past 5 pipes, and then the next one, boom, right into it.
Yeah,
Fuck it.
fair enough.
They're-
Enough. So, just a little bit of a backstory here. Toronto Maple Leafs founded 1927. Obviously, still active today. 13 championships total, and as Dave clearly pointed out, not one since '67, and we're not going to be looking at anyone anytime soon.
But you're
New.
I guess my question is like how we're interpreting it. If you're basing it basically pure on a business,
No, and I'm not going to base it purely on a business, but the business factor is definitely there.
because nobody touches the Leafs. I think they make more money than almost any franchise. Maybe the Yankees maybe.
Based
United.
purely
Who?
on
Manchester United makes the most.
Manchester,
Manchester United makes the most,
but they're not Canadian.
the
They're
Maple
not,
Leafs make the most because of legacy. Legacy.
It is.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Legacy
when you're
is part
talking
of it.
about being the
Montreal
greatest.
is also the other team that makes. a very good
Toronto's
amount.
the economic capital of Canada, right? And hockey is Canada's game.
Yep.
Therefore,
Only makes sense.
they can print money for the Leafs. And
But
that's-
we're not gonna pose just strictly on the money value here. I also want points that have to do with the actual teams themselves, how they actually contribute to their respective sport. Okay, this isn't about which sport's better. Okay, because if we're
They
gonna
let
go there,
everybody
it's
else
fucking
win.
hockey, and we all know it. Okay, it's that simple. But 2 of you guys didn't pick hockey, so that's gonna be the interesting vote.
I'll
here.
tell you
And the
why.
guy that doesn't watch hockey picked hockey.
That's right. That tells you another thing, right?
I'll tell you. I
Good news, he's not on my hockey
who's up
team.
next? Me or Jeff?
It's
Oh, I
gonna
love
be
to
you next,
play.
actually.
I just
All right.
don't like to watch.
I picked the Toronto Blue Jays.
You sure did. Tell us why.
Baseball is universally loved across this country. They talk about being America's game. It is just as much our game as it is theirs. We love baseball in Canada. They play it nationwide. What makes the Blue Jays the greatest sports franchise in Canada is that, unlike the Leafs, we are the only baseball team in the country. And therefore, the entire country loves the Blue
Now,
Jays.
though, we had the Expos. And
Yeah, we did have the Expos. And I grew up in Montreal, and I was an Expos fan first. But then the Blue Jays came along with the World Series when I was like 9 and 10.
Yep.
And it changed me. I was like, fuck the Expos. I'm a Blue Jays fan now. And I believed it because they kind of positioned the reason I think the Expos failed was they positioned the Blue Jays as Canada's team, and the Expos were Quebec's team. And they kind of like had that whole
the
differentiating
question
point.
is, who positioned them? Was it Quebec or was it?
I think it was the way
Canada?
I think it was the way the Expos kind of wanted to do it, right? Like they put the fleur de lis right on the jersey.
True.
They kind of put themselves aside from Canada. They didn't really feel Canadian, whereas the Blue Jays have that big friggin' maple leaf right in there, right? Then the Expos die, go to Washington. The Blue Jays now can claim Quebec and the rest of it. And there are so many great Canadian baseball players today, I think, because of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Fair enough.
And we don't have to compete unlike the Leafs, where you're competing against the Habs, the Jets, the Oilers, the Flames, the Canucks, and the Sens.
But you're saying that baseball is beloved across this country, but we can only support one baseball team?
Well, that's just the economics
That's a
of
good
baseball.
point.
Baseball is big money.
That is a good point.
Baseball is big money, and it's only a city on the scale of Toronto can really support it, as we saw when Montreal tried to have a team and it failed.
Fair enough. Okay. Mr. Jeff, Tell us who you picked.
I picked Toronto Raptors.
You sure did.
So I went basketball. And like the Blue Jays, we're also Canada's team, so I can take that moniker as well. Just to give you some stats here, the Raptors are 4th in attendance in the NBA in average, which is pretty impressive considering basketball is pretty, popular down in the States. I don't know, especially in the inner cities. Chicago Bulls, I think, are ahead of them, the Knicks and the Lakers. So, obviously, those are massive
And
franchises.
the Lakers actually recently have been losing that position.
Right.
I know.
Right. So, considering the Raptors are 4th in that, they sell out like every game. Like they're crammed to the brims in that stadium every night. People care about this team. People want to see them win. If they lose, they'll stick with them as well, which is really great. Just like the Leafs. They have fame power. They have Drake, who basically is he's an ambassador to the team for the whole.
I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing.
I didn't say
They got Drake!
We got Drake. What do you fucking Leafs have? We got Justin Bieber.
You got Mike Myers making a terrible
Jesus.
movie about the team.
True.
So I'm trying to make a point for the just overall fame of the Raptors, which I think they have a ton of. Vince Carter with the slam dunk contest when he was Rookie of the Year. Actually, I think it was the year after. That was huge.
Gone now, though.
Yeah, it's okay, but we're talking about the franchise, and we're talking about a little bit of notoriety, and I'm trying to put that influence. They have influenced Canadian basketball a whole ton. The last 2 drafts, you've had back-to-back Canadians drafted first overall. That does not happen without the Toronto Raptors being here. I just don't think it would occur. Another thing I could go off is they got 2 division titles. So they win now. They have 2007 and 2011, and I think. And last year, and I think they might win again this year. It's very close. Actually, they will win that this year. So they win now. Your 2 teams do not win now. So I think they are.
My team's got 2 World Series.
Yeah, 20 years ago. I'm talking about a team that is.
It's better than never and 50 years ago.
No, but at least my team has a chance. Your team never has a chance. They consistently.
It's harder to win a World Series than it is to win an NBA title.
I disagree. I think the same teams win the NBA title
Why?
almost every year.
Less teams make the playoffs.
True.
They play a longer season. It's tougher. And what that meant to Canada to win those World Series was huge.
When was the last time Toronto Blue Jays even came close to making the playoffs? Even came close.
20 years ago.
The year they won.
The year they won. Exactly.
20 years. I didn't even live here. I lived in Montreal when those World Series were won. You lived
was here, yeah.
You guys lived here. How big was it?
Oh, it's fucking
Huge.
huge.
It's huge.
It
We
was-
went to watch on the Jumbotron.
Yeah. I saw it on the
I don't even like baseball.
we went to we went into Hamilton and watched it on the Jumbotron in there.
Yeah. It's Canada's team. It's Canada's best franchise. And if we only had one Canadian hockey team, yeah, definitely hockey's our sport. But it's split. The vote's split. We can't, you can't have it. Basketball,
All right.
It's
So-
not. It's never been our first love.
All right, so let's look at some of the stats here, just because I think we all kind of jumped on them a bit, but we didn't really clarify them too much. Out of all the teams, the oldest team is obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs. 1927 to today, 13 championships total. Forbes has them rated at an estimated worth of $1.3 billion. That's a fucking big paycheck. All right, fair enough. So to Kevin's point, and as Kevin said, marketability on that is phenomenal on that show.
And based purely on legacy, not even on the way
It
they
is true.
play.
It's not on the way they play now. It's on the way they used to at one point.
Is that just the Leafs or is that MLSE? Because also the Raptors are part of MLSE, so just like the point.
Oh, I didn't know.
This is based on Forbes, and Forbes goes based on the franchise itself. Okay. So I would assume that would be the portion for there, but honestly, I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
So, but that's a very valid point though,
Yep.
because the Raptors are part of the MLSE
Yep.
division,
They're right in their coattails.
something like that. Okay. Well, either way,
It's really the Raptors that are making all the money.
the second oldest team out of what you guys picked. The second oldest team is the Toronto Blue Jays at 1977, which was the year I was born, actually. So 38 years old.
And they won it. And 15 years later, they won back-to-back World Series.
They did win back-to-back World Series, and they have an estimated wealth value right now of $610 million. Okay, which is still fairly impressive, especially for a sport that is not our base sport in Canada. Okay, we can all be fair on this. Hockey gets way more play.
Okay, but
we
what's
know
number
that.
2?
Okay. Funny enough, Toronto Raptors, the youngest of those teams, of the 3 teams you guys picked. And I also thought it was interesting that all 3 of you picked a Toronto team, which was impressive. 1993 to 2015, obviously. 0 championships for the Raptors. However, to your point earlier, they have made it pretty fucking close a couple times. They really have. What was it, last year or the year before?
Last year they did pretty good.
Yeah.
They got beat in the first round, but like they're winning their division consistently now.
And now Dave is going to say, yeah, but they never fucking made it. So
Well, not even.
here, I'll take that for you right there.
Not even.
All right, fair enough.
At least they're good now.
However, the Toronto Raptors have a current market value, according to Forbes, of $920 million, making them the second of the three.
I don't get it. I'll tell. There's a reason it took till 1993 for baseball to come to Canada, or for basketball to come to Canada, because we care
Jurassic Park movie.
No, we care about basketball the least.
At that point, I think we did.
Really, look at the Sky Dome on any game during the Blue Jays. Like, say they're playing the Tampa Bay Rays. Like 2/3 of that thing.
I remember at one time they had to drop tickets to $9.
Yeah.
To get people to go.
Well, maybe that's the great thing about baseball is that the tickets are affordable, and every kid can go, regardless of economic
You know what?
level.
That is
Holy
a good
shit,
point.
You should be in politics.
It is a good point, though. He's made it is a game that you can take your kids to for fairly cheap, and it is a good.
And
value.
they can be bored out of
But
their
they
minds.
can be
That's
bored
what
out of
I
their
used-
fucking
I used to go to 5 or 6 a year and
You
just
remember
be
John
bored
Travolta?
out of my mind.
John Travolta in Basic, and he's like, you remember that movie Basic?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care for baseball, sir. He's like, how can you not like baseball? It's all about the anticipation. It's a game of anticipation.
Boredom, right?
Where a million different possibilities can happen every time that pitch
No,
comes.
it's either hit or it isn't.
Yeah.
It's,
A million different
those are your two fucking
Or
possibilities.
foul. There's 3. Or foul.
Well, yeah, you can hit it and it doesn't go anywhere good. So there is 3 possibilities on that one.
No, it's all about what pitch is the pitcher going to throw. Like, if you understand baseball...
There's like 4 pitches though, isn't there?
No, there's... Like, okay.
I know. I'm just giving you a shit. I'm giving you a hard time. No, and to get to your point though, I think you do have a valid point. It is a very inexpensive sport between the 3 of them here that we're talking about. It's the least expensive sport to take somebody to. It's debatable if you're going to enjoy it or not. I know a lot of people who do enjoy baseball. I personally can't stand it. Okay, but that's not the debate that we're having here. Okay. No. When it comes to the 2 other teams, Raptors tickets aren't terrible, but they are expensive. And I think they're starting to really take advantage of that, but that's part of the whole Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, right? So we got that as well.
If that wasn't the case, they
Toronto, I have to mortgage a fucking house to get tickets to get to a game, and then I still get to see an awful game.
The Leafs,
So,
you mean?
Yeah, the Leafs. Excuse me, the Leafs. Yeah, absolutely. You guys all brought up major points. The one thing I was kind of interested about, which the 2 other guys didn't bring up, which Jeff did, was the fact that they are the 4th. They're right now the 4th, the highest grossing.
I said they were 4th in attendance in the league.
In attendance, yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads to dollars. Let's face it.
Yep.
It leads to dollars. That's an impressive thing in its own. And Toronto Maple Leafs games, let's face it, if you watch them on TV, 3/4 of the seats are empty anyway because they're all corporately owned, right? If you want
It's
a
a
good
soulless team.
yeah, soulless.
The Raptors are not soulless. Then people give a shit about that team.
They do give a shit about that team. I'm gonna bring it down to 2. Honestly, Dave, I can't see how you're
What?
on this.
I should be winning this round by far.
Okay, tell you what, Dave, I'm going to give you another minute. Sell me on why not baseball as a sport, but the franchise itself is a better franchise than the 2 others.
Why it's a better franchise?
Yeah.
It was the most successful of any of them. It got to 2 World Series wins in the shortest amount of time. Raptors have never even won, so take them out of the equation. And the Leafs, they only won when there were 6 teams. Like, and the athletes weren't pro. Like, it wasn't modern age. The Blue Jays won in the modern age, which is way more impressive. And the love of the Blue Jays is more universal across Canada than the Leafs, where the Leafs are not universally loved across Canada. We live in the GTA, so yeah, we hear Leafs Nation constantly. We're constantly getting the Leafs jammed down our throat. But that's not the case everywhere. So it's
So
not...
you're telling me if I go anywhere in Canada, if I'm talking to somebody, they're all about Toronto Blue Jays.
If they give a shit about baseball...
I think they don't.
They care. If they give a shit about baseball, in the least, they're going to say, I'm a Blue Jays fan. If you go like to BC, Nova Scotia...
Well, that's easy when there's only one team.
Exactly.
One Canadian
Therefore,
team.
Canada's
So
team.
you're not telling me that they're Wow, you kind of threw that one in there.
I'm telling you.
You know what? Honestly,
Excellent.
if I was ever to run for, let's say, a vice president position, and there was a president that was going to have to be picked, I would want Dave on my team.
Can I have a rebuttal?
Absolutely.
He said was the best team.
He
the
did.
question is,
I did
what
catch that.
is the best franchise in Canadian sports? And like I said before, the Toronto Raptors sell out the most. Well, they're close with the Leafs. Those people don't count. They're insane.
Listen, the Leafs own the Raptors.
I know.
So I win.
No, but with the Raptors, I will say this.
There's your fucking rebuttal right there.
They win.
We own you, bitch.
They're winning now. They're interesting. The Leafs suck. I'm a diehard Leaf fan. I am just crying myself to sleep.
Right, you apologize for being a Leafs fan, right? Like I said.
Absolutely I do. But you know what?
Now, when was it? Now, let me ask you this, though. When was the last time you went to a Leafs game?
Oh, a year ago?
Year ago? Okay.
Yeah.
And do you roughly know how much you paid for?
I didn't pay. I got given the tickets.
Okay, how much were the
The only
tickets
Leafs
worth?
game I've ever been to.
How much were the ticket value?
Oh, where I sat, I think it took $200 each.
$200. And where did you sit?
First
area?
No, Reds.
Reds?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
that's about
fairly
what
decent.
Lower bowl, top.
Lower bowl, top. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Basketball, same thing.
I think I went with Amanda a year and a bit ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
Where'd you sit and how much did it cost?
same kind of seats, Reds, and it was $150 a ticket.
150, so a little bit cheaper. One of the points with...
What was the last baseball game you went to?
Okay, well, that's a baseball game.
I went to one last year with you, didn't I?
Canada Day?
No, it wasn't Canada Day. I forget, but I think we sat up. Yeah, we went to that game. And I think those tickets were $70, something like that.
Mm.
And where were you guys sitting there?
In the left field, right, like down by the edge.
So like 100s.
Yeah,
Like outfield on the
Outfield
left.
100s.
outfield on the left, 100.
So fly ball territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. This is a hard one, and I will tell you, Dave, out of the gate, I thought you were going to be done. Okay, I will say that. You brought up some incredible points. I am very impressed with your
Thank you.
with your argument. The one thing I wanted to hear from you, Jeff, that I didn't hear,
Yep.
which I thought would have really helped your point better,
Yep.
was the fact that basketball, if you look at basketball when they first started, like 93,
Sure.
wasn't very popular. No one gave a shit in Canada. Let's face it.
I did say
right?
that.
You said it to a degree, but the one thing I wanted to see now was the fact that over the last 5 years, basketball has just fucking blew up. Like, it's blown up in Canada, in my opinion. Like,
Definitely,
absolutely.
especially here.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think you really touched on that as much as I would have liked to hear you touch on it, but you did touch on it to a degree. Your point being, baseball is Canada's game, or Canada's favorite.
No, I didn't argue baseball is Canada's game. I would say, okay, I acknowledge hockey is our game.
It is.
But you can't say that the Leafs are Canada's franchise, that they're Canada's team, because they're not.
This is
because
true.
The question is not whether they're Canada's team. It's the greatest Canadian franchise.
It is Canadian-based.
Well, a franchise
It's
is a
not-
team, right? That's
It
what
is.
that's who you root for. That's who,
Right. No,
that's,
absolutely. I'm not saying the team is the
And
difference.
if the
It's
Leafs-
the Canada's
if
team.
the Leafs were the only team-
reason they're Canada's team is because they're the only one, and same with the Raptors.
Sure.
Yeah. So
There's nobody
he can't
else to
win
cheer
because
for.
So it's how we actually interpret the question.
the way I interpret it is hockey can't win. No hockey team could win because you can never claim all of Canada because we have 7 pro teams here, plus a whole ton of junior teams and AHL teams and all kinds of things. In baseball, there's only one show, the Blue Jays, and forget
nobody
basketball.
gives a shit
Basketball
about
should
it.
have died a death years ago. If it wasn't for the Leafs carrying them along.
Why do you think that it should have died?
It would have died based on just from a financial point of view because they weren't selling any tickets in their shit years.
His is the youngest team.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes, they've never won a championship. Okay, I will give you that for sure.
Never made a final.
However, they are making more money than the Blue Jays are. They are making more money, plain and simple.
Which means more butts in the seat.
More butts in the seats. Okay, and
All the Canadians can't come. That's only GTA based.
Then how are they Canada's team if
More
Canadians can't even come to the
too.
games?
I'm going to say this. Just
but that's the same thing for you though. Like if
For both
I'm
of
a, if I'm
it's
a
a bigger
baseball
stadium.
fan,
It's a bigger stadium
if I'm a baseball fan in Vancouver, how the fuck do I see your team
on TV.
Exactly. Right?
Right.
How am I going to see his team? Same thing. Right?
Yeah, but you don't care about his team because you're a Canucks fan, most likely.
But the question is
that's a
not,
powerful point.
is not
That
whether
is a
they're
powerful point. I'll
Canada's
give 'em that.
team. It's the greatest Canadian franchise.
Same thing.
It's
Come
not
on,
the same
right
thing.
now,
Not even
right
close
now,
to
and
the
the
same
question
thing.
is, what is the best Canadian franchise? Right now, it is the Toronto Raptors. They have the most relevance, the most influence. Like I said, the last 2 drafts in the NBA, Canadians from Toronto were taken first overall. That is not a coincidence, and that is not, like, name me, other than Joey Votto, a player from Toronto that's in the MLB.
Most fans of
Jason Bay.
He's from Toronto? I think he's from
Oh.
BC. You know, I think
Oh,
most of them are from
I thought
BC.
you asked Canada, sorry.
No, I'm asking from Toronto. Other than Joey Votto, name me one guy that's from Toronto.
of any of the 3 teams who has the most fans right now.
It's definitely the Leafs, but
There you go. And they're still losing.
That's not.
But that doesn't matter because they have the most fans right now. They're Canada's team.
That's like saying
They have fans. They do have fans across Canada.
They do.
that's like saying like.
So
you
they
know,
have what
but
you
not-
have
So
and more.
let me clarify the question as how it was written. It was written, what is the best Canadian-based franchise in sports? Plain and simple, okay? If you're going strictly by the numbers, he wins it, okay? But I don't really feel we need to, okay? I think we can also look into what your point is, which is who represents Canada as a franchise. In that case, the Leafs don't win it because the Leafs don't represent Canada.
If you were asking
They
who
represent-
is Toronto's franchise,
How do they not
It's the
represent
Leafs.
Canada? They have the most fans. The most fans across Canada.
They have the most fans here.
Yeah, in GTA.
You're telling me that in BC
If
you,
you-
have tons of Toronto Maple Leafs fans.
More than you would
I
Blue
think
Jays
there's-
fans.
I think he's right about
Definitely
that.
more the Blue Jays, that's for sure. Okay.
I don't think you're wrong. I think baseball is underappreciated in this circle.
I think the Leafs.
No,
are-
I think
I
it's
fucking
under-
hate baseball, but
I
that's
think
not
it's
part of my-
appreciated
that's
the
not part of
appropriate
my
amount
role
in
here.
the country.
Okay.
I think to his point, the Leafs have the most influence over North America. I think over his point as far as
Well,
like
that's a good point.
or just of like when you go see a Leaf game, like when they're in like Florida or
They're a
in-
huge draw on the
they're a
road.
They
huge
are a
draw
huge
on the
draw,
road.
yeah.
Whereas are the 2 teams? It's only in certain places like Cleveland, Seattle, just a couple of the places. So I'm not trying to argue against myself. I'm just trying to say that he does have a point there.
Okay, boys, I'm going to have to sum this up because we got to keep moving.
Yeah.
As much as I actually, out of all of you guys, I think Dave probably was one of the top people for the debate because Dave really brought in a lot to the table. He not only took the relevance of what they are to Canada, but he also took the fact of this is a team that is representing Canada in the baseball stage. Okay, and on top of that, the only thing that hurts Dave is the sales numbers because I will tell you they're pathetic compared to the other 2. They are like it's. And I think it was Jeff that made the point was when you watch one of those games on TV, it is fucking empty, and it really is. It's empty now. Is it a fault of the Blue Jays? I don't know. Is it a fault of the fact that maybe there isn't as many fans for baseball? That could be. Obviously, there's more fans
Well,
for hockey.
when it's a Yankees game or it's like one of the big teams, like they're sold out, like almost, right? Like,
Okay.
and there's a
So
lot.
when it's a good team,
And don't forget the Sky Dome.
so they can sell out when
a good
there's
team
a good
comes in
team
place.
showing.
Okay, they both play in the same building, Air Canada Center. It's what, like 20,000 seats?
19,000.
Okay,
19,000
Air-
change, yeah.
Sky Dome is like 20. No, it's
Good
like
for you.
60, 70,000 seats. It's harder to sell out a big, and they play every other day in baseball.
This is true. There is a lot more games compared to the other 2 sports.
So
By far.
not everybody can afford to go to that many games. So people got to stretch it out. So that's not the fault of baseball.
So I interpret the question of it's not necessarily a representation of Canada, but it is a team based in Canada. Okay. When I look at franchise definitely the business perspective is the key. I'm going to have to eliminate you because of that. Okay. However, I'm going to give you, in this scenario, I'm amazed you managed to get this right. Because honestly, you had probably the hardest pick out of all 3 to defend, and I think you did it fantastic. So
Thank you.
I will give you praise for that. However, on the actual whole question itself, you're not all there. Okay, so it's just I can't give it to you.
I don't have the numbers. I don't have the money.
You don't have the money, and that's what it comes down to. And when it gets to the money, the Leafs are going to have to take it in this scenario because they are a Canadian-based team. It's not about representing Canada. It's about the fact that they're based in Canada. I will say to your point, though, Jeff, if this question was asked in 3 years from now, I think the tides are going to turn because basketball is blowing up.
If the Raptors win a championship, it can all change.
I don't think that's.
And I don't think the Raptors represent Canada. I think they represent Toronto and the surrounding areas. Okay, go ahead.
But you didn't ask that question.
No,
you
I
didn't
didn't.
ask what franchise best represents Canada.
No, I didn't.
You
Absolutely.
asked which franchise that's based in Canada is the best, and
Yes.
the Leafs suck. They're terrible. They're
No,
terrible.
he didn't ask.
But what is
who
the best?
best?
What is the? How do you interpret the best? To me, number one, I use the term franchise,
Yep.
and the reason I didn't say team is because I wanted to bring the business aspect into it.
Okay.
And let's face it. And to Kevin's point, they own you.
No, I can argue against not the money,
Okay.
but I will argue in the influence. How many?
I'm going to
people-
tell you that
Now,
it's
I
down to
did-
you too. So I'm
I
going to hear
did
it.
say that a lot of people in the States go watch Leafs, but those are hockey fans. In the States, everybody knows about the Raptors. They're a very popular team. Like
They are.
They are. Like from Vince Carter, from the start of that,
You're
Kevin
saying the
Durant.
Leafs aren't a popular team.
Not-
You already made that point. That
I
they
did.
Are a popular
I said
team
they are
already.
popular for hockey fans. How many hockey fans compared to basketball fans are there in the States? And we're talking about what is the best franchise based in Canada. I think it has to be the
I'm
Toronto
gonna
Raptors.
interject here and just say when I watch the Leafs travel all across the American cities, even the Canadian cities, I always see Leaf jerseys all around in those stands. Right?
That's true.
When I see the Raptors go to Brooklyn, I don't see any Raptors jerseys.
I do. You have to watch more Raptor games. They
I don't
definitely.
see either of those.
I watch Raptors games, and I'm kind of with them on this one. You don't see as many.
You don't see as many, but it's not the point. What my point is, most people in the States, those are Canadians, go and watch those games for the most part.
And every time I watch a Devils game on my Apple TV with my NHL Game Center, whatever the hell they call that,
Yeah.
there is tons of Leafs jerseys in that audience. Now, geographically, kind of makes sense. It's easier to get to New Jersey than it would be to get
You
to
see the
LA.
same thing when it's a Florida game or a Dallas game.
Florida
It is
makes
true, though,
sense,
absolutely.
but I don't know if you'll see it as much in Phoenix or in or
Even,
maybe you
even
would
in Phoenix, every city.
Minnesota, I will say, when I watched the Minnesota game,
Yeah, was there a lot there?
there was a lot there.
Okay.
There really was. And that did shock me. But no, I get your point. Like, Florida makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Canadians
Arizona
there.
makes sense.
Arizona makes some sense as well. Minnesota, never thought I would see that. So
Okay.
to Dave's point, which technically is for him,
I'm helping out Kevin.
he's
Have
kind of
to be,
helping out
because I
Kevin
don't
in this
know what I'm
scenario.
talking about.
The major issue that I have with giving him the point is that I think you brought up a very excellent point where the Raptors are they are the youngest team out of all three of these. Okay, and let's be fair, they don't have the footing that the other two teams did. Okay, they don't have that footing. They gotta work a little bit harder because they're the last ones out of the gate. That being said, if I take the question as based in franchise in sports, I'm still going to have to give it to Toronto because, actually, Dave is what won.
We're all
the
Torontos. Which
Yeah,
Toronto are we
which
talking about?
Toronto?
In this case, sorry, the Maple Leafs. Okay, because Dave really did kind of, and I'm fucking shocked. That he's, like,
I'm the most shocked.
I'm
I
either
actually-
the most terrible guy for this because fucking. Like,
I
wow,
watch no
Dave wins a
sports.
fucking music thing. This guy wins
This is
sports.
sports.
I am fucking retarded, I think.
I don't know. A lot of good arguments, those Raptors.
Yeah.
I can't believe how riled up.
And
I
I'll
got
win.
about
I'll win
sports.
history
Weird.
over him.
Yeah, if Ashley listens to this, she's gonna be like, "What the fuck
Yeah,
is
she'll
this?"
never sleep with me again.
Yeah, probably not. All right, this is where the tides are definitely gonna turn. History. All right, this is always the hard question because this is the one that always runs the longest. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as we can, guys. Okay, so history. What was the greatest failure of a U.S. president during their term in office? So this is something. It has to be while they are acting as president, representing the country. In this case, I'm going to start with Kevin. So Kevin, tell me who you picked.
Picked Ronald Reagan for the war on drugs.
War on drugs.
Now I
Interesting.
understand.
Which is the reason why we had those splash screens.
I
on those arcade
understand
games.
before anybody jumps on me that Nixon was the one that declared the war on drugs,
It's true.
but he did nothing. Reagan really ramped it up,
He did.
and it's really his war. And all it did was criminalize people that wanted to get high. It criminalized addicts that had no outlet for help because they would just go to jail if they went and asked for help. And all it did was create a huge prison population. From 1980, 50,000 people in jail for non-violent drug crimes. 1997, 400,000 people in jail for non-violent drug crimes. And for what? For
And you don't
smoking?
even have a smartphone in front of you. I'm impressed.
No, but that's the only numbers I remember.
Dave's checking you though.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for my answer because I'm.
But it's if you want to talk about the biggest failure, it is a failure. drug abuse rates are exactly the same as they were at the turn of the century.
All right.
Banning drugs has never been a good idea. Trying to enforce it with all that fervor didn't work. It's all the same.
Okay.
All it did was cause problems. All it did was make criminals. All it did was fund violent criminals. And that's it.
All right. All right, Jeff, I'm going to go to you next.
Okay.
Are you ready there, bud?
Yep.
All right, let's have at it. What's your answer?
I picked Woodrow Wilson and the creation of the Federal Reserve with the Federal Reserve Act in 1913.
Which happened to be the same year he started.
Yep.
All right.
The reason why I picked it is very simple. Basically, that was the Congress handing over its soul to bankers. Now, this is
That's-
a good one.
That's a good way of saying it. Okay. Let's hear it.
It's quite simple. And then you talk about a failure. Woodrow Wilson got elected by the endorsement of a whole bunch of bankers on the precedent that he would sign this into law.
They bought him.
They bought him. Okay, they bought him, and if you look at Woodrow Wilson, he actually was a pretty good president, but this is his by far biggest failure, and I think it's the biggest failure of any president. It goes back to what I said from right at the beginning, that this really was against what the forefathers wanted for the country. He built a system of money that is controlled by very few people, by international bankers, which is basically handing over the keys over to some of the most ruthless people that are just interested in making money. There's a reason why now in the States 1% of the country controls a majority of the wealth, and this was the start of it. Well, it was kind of the last coffin nail in making sure that it occurred. It set up the system of how they went to war and made money off of war. Before, they kind of fought wars just really for land or for the Civil War, obviously. But this kind of changed the whole trajectory of how money was used in the States, how it was controlled by small people. This bill wasn't even written by congressmen. It was written by bankers on a place called Jekyll Island. If you look more into this, it's really a great failure not because he meant to do something good, but because he knew it was wrong and did it anyway. And I have a quote from him, and it says, and this is actually I just did some research on this, and it said that this comes from 1912, so this is before he's elected. It's right before, which makes this even worse. This quote, he says, he wrote a regret. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit, no longer a government by free opinion, but by conviction and majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of men.
Fuck, he's got quotes.
He's got quotes. You better get on that fucking smartphone.
Overall, we look at the trajectory of what the States is today, which, let's face it, is a very small amount of very rich people. It's a middle class that used to be once prosperous, but has only gotten smaller. And this has to do with its system of debt and credit, which was established and really put the nail in the coffin right here in 1913.
Could he have known what was going to happen?
I think he definitely knew what was going to happen because he was bought by the people who did it.
But did they know what was going to happen?
Yeah.
They knew that it was one day going to fuck the country over to the scale it has?
Yeah, and a lot of people like Charles Lindbergh and this other guy named William T. McFadden, who was a congressman in the 30s, they have a whole bunch of quotes that state, this is by far the worst atrocity in American history, that this really, most people don't even know where their money comes from, who it's controlled by, and this is really what started it. And you just look at that. I can give you some more quotes after, but let Dave.
Yeah, let's go to Dave.
Okay.
What was your pick, Dave?
My pick was George W. Bush. The Iraq War.
The Iraq War. All right. Now, just to be clear, this is the second Iraq War, right?
The second Iraq War. This is
first
specifically
one
to
was
the
the
son.
original George.
Yeah, no, not the. I guess they call that more the Gulf War. I guess.
Yeah, I guess the Gulf War would be
is
how
what
they
it's more referred to.
Yeah. You're well.
Okay, well, first of all, internationally, this is by far more so because both of their issues are domestic. Mine is a global issue.
I don't know if okay.
The war on
Let's hear
drugs
it.
is totally a global issue.
Yeah, but it's specific to it affects U.S. citizens, and this one was illegal, okay, and immoral. Whereas the war on drugs, it's debatable with the merits of of trying to control drugs, especially towards children, right? You can always make that argument, kids shouldn't have to. Okay? Do you know what kids don't need? Bullets in their heads. And
Also true.
it was an illegal
Such a great
invasion.
politician.
The human
I know, I'm
casualties.
telling you, like, honestly, like, I'd fucking support him in a heartbeat. Anyway, go.
The human casualties were massive. Over 5,000 American troops killed, but well beyond that, the Iraqi and the other allied troops that were involved in the war was massive. For a war that really never needed to take place, I think that's basically universally accepted now that it was a stupid war. It was a huge mistake. That George W. Bush will consistently have that egg on his face forever. I think that the one with Woodrow, interesting, but I never knew that. Kind of like the Celtics, right? The financial costs are what are really staggering, and what that war cost to put on. To the U.S. taxpayers, it cost $1.9 trillion.
That's a good chunk of change. The Leafs make.
It had an adverse effect on the U.S.-led war of terror, and the result today is what we're dealing with: ISIS or ISIL, or however you want to refer to them.
Yeah, all right.
And not to mention just the immoral effects of going after Iraqi oil and the obvious, like if you watch, what's that movie Bush or no W, where who is it?
Joe Brolin.
Richard Dreyfuss plays Dick Cheney. And he explains
Yeah,
how
I don't think I've seen it.
he's like, we take over Iraq, we now control all the oil in the Middle East, except for Iran, and that will be next. And what's happening right now, we're seeing it. This is history happening before our eyes, people, and it's massive. And the long-term global effects, way beyond the war on drugs, way beyond whatever he said, Federal Reserve.
Perfect. Okay, so one of the things that I thought of while I was writing this question was, what is the long-term effects of these things that happened? Okay, so for instance, Ronald Reagan, obviously, there's the war on drugs, and still they're decriminalizing states that this is still in effect, in my opinion, and I'm going to let you guys explain your points. Federal Reserve Act, the 1%, as Jeff said, and of course the Iraq War, thousands dead. We now have to deal with different terror cells because of this. Whole slew of stuff. So I want you guys to take a minute or two. Just give me, what is the long-term effect of what, the reason why this is what's referred to as the greatest failure, and why this president caused this, and how it still affects the U.S. today. Go.
Massive incarceration of the poor. That is the single biggest problem. Also, the single biggest export of the United States is culture. Is their culture. Any country that comes out of, say, the rule of dictatorship or whatever, they end up having McDonald's on the street and whatever. It's culture. It's American culture around the world. You look at, and these policies happen around the world, and we're putting addicts in jail for no reason, for something that is medical. And there are better ways to do it, and I wish I could remember the place that has done it, that is completely reversed. It's somewhere in South America. They've completely reversed their ideas.
Yeah, I remember.
And made everything legal, not just pot, everything. And
Well, if
the
nothing's
crime,
illegal, you knock it down, right?
The crime is gone. The crime around it is gone. I mean, prohibition.
We know that prohibition doesn't work, right?
Exactly, and that's exactly
we learned that.
That's exactly what the war on drugs is. It's prohibition.
Fair enough.
So that's exactly what it is. And then you look at how it's affecting Mexico. The American war on drugs is, people are fucking dying in Mexico in droves because of it. It affects the world, it affects the United States, and it has long-term effects. Look at how, if you have even a small drug charge on your record, good luck getting a job in the States. Forget about it.
They drug test
Also,
too.
they think drug testing is okay.
Yeah.
For what you do on the weekend. That's bullshit.
All right.
I mean, you lose your job. It has huge impacts on the economy. It impacts everything.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to go to Jeff next. So you tell me what your long-term...
Okay, well, I have a quote here from a guy named Buckminster Fuller, and he said, and just to kind of start off with what you're saying, to expose a $15 trillion ripoff of the American people by stockholders of the 1,000 largest corporations over the last 100 years is a tall order of business for me to explain to you. But
True.
what I will say is that the Federal Reserve is not the government. It's like it is a private company. It runs free from the rules of Congress. This is what this act did. It made them more powerful than the government. It's not owned by the federal government. It is its own thing. There's an old quote from Rothschild, which is one of the most popular, not popular, but is popular, but also powerful families in human history. He says, give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws. So once they did this in 1913, they really got control of the United States' money supply, and that was actually what the revolution, a lot of people will say, was fought over, was the fact that the British wanted to set up banking systems in the United States, and the reason why that whole revolution was fought was a big reason, and it had to do with the money supply. America creating its own money that was free from Europe.
Fair enough.
So overall, the long-term effects on this, just look at how we use money today, our system of credit, debt, it all goes back to this act, and that's why it's great.
Okay. Dave, same thing.
Mine's more current.
It is, for sure. Started in 2001.
Mine has, the long-term effects of mine are yet to be seen. But I think we can all tell it's going to have major repercussions for the decades to come. And George W. Bush knew about this whole debt thing, and he still went and spent $1.9 trillion. For what? Right?
War profiteering.
Profiteering for nothing. He wasting the country's money. War on drugs, interesting issue, but I don't think on the same global scale, not to the same historical significance long term. I think it's up there, but not as powerful.
Okay. The same mine is not as a domestic issue is also a fallacy. When it was written by bankers, I'm talking not just about American bankers. I'm talking about international banks, and that is what the United States government was sold to.
Everything the States does affects the world.
Yeah,
everything. You said that. What was Woodrow Wilson? What was his goal?
His goal from what?
For this.
For the
Federal Reserve. What was his goal?
His goal was to just basically balance the system of credit, because at that time there was lots of crashes.
You had said, though, that he knew that it wouldn't work.
I didn't say that.
You said something like you knew it would be a failure.
He asked me, did he know what he was doing?
That's it. Did he know what he was doing?
But he was going into an instance where at first, when he first got elected, they weren't in World War I, right? And so what he said is, when he got elected, he was going to be the president that wasn't going to take America to war, which a lot of people were dead set against war, just like in World War II. Once he got into office, because he got sponsored by a lot of these bankers, he passes this bill on, I think it's Christmas Day, 1913, and on that day, pretty much no one showed up to Congress. It was passed by only a handful of congressmen. And
Do you think that was on purpose?
Absolutely, it was on purpose, and it was all very hush-hush and they gave it the moniker the Federal Reserve, so it makes it sound like it is the government, but it's not. It's a private corporation.
Well, as a layman, if you're sitting there, you would think the Federal Reserve is part of the government. Right?
My question is, was he trying to fix the country, or was he trying to either line his own pockets or stay in power?
No, I think he was trying to not line in his own pockets necessarily, but he was trying to, get into power, get into office.
And stay in power.
And stay in office and then once the war came, that wasn't until later, but I think he was trying to be the president that just basically knew what he was doing was wrong, but had to do it because he wasn't going to get elected otherwise.
But if he knew it was wrong, then how is it a failure?
It's totally a failure.
The Reserve, the Federal Reserve, is a failure.
That's like,
but it's not what he.
You could argue both of these points that both Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush knew what they were doing was wrong, and believed it was wrong.
Bush didn't know. He's too dumb to know.
I think both. I think just public opinion at the time of all three of what we're talking about, not just the presidents themselves, they all knew that what they were doing wasn't necessarily what they should be doing, or actually was contrary to what the government.
Yeah, smell that again.
Yeah.
I think it's in my fridge. I think there's something in my fridge I need to get rid of.
Because the beer you just gave me.
Just to get off sidetracked here a little bit, but anyway, fair enough.
I don't know.
We're dealing with a domestic issue of our own right here.
There's something stinky in my fridge.
I'm
All
saying
right.
it's a failure, not necessarily because Woodrow Wilson failed, but because it was the greatest failure of what any president ever did. You know,
It's a failure of the president.
You're right. I'm
which
fairly out of my depth here.
I did warn him that history would be something you two would be butting heads on a lot.
Yep.
Because both of you are very passionate about history. Okay, based on what I've heard from you guys right now, I have one person who, in my opinion, is way ahead of everybody else, but I want to hear the opinions of the other two. So, Dave and Kevin, quite honestly,
You think he's ahead?
I think he's ahead right now. But, that can change. Tell me in 1 minute where you think the clear failure was by Bush and how he caused it. Okay? So I want to know, what did he directly do that fucked this up so bad that we're going to have a problem?
It all starts with 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, there was an immediate urgency from his administration to pin it on Iraq. They have been looking for an excuse to go after Iraq for years. And when the terrorist attacks happened, it seemed like a convenient thing. They were pressuring everybody in the CIA and different intelligence organizations and security organizations around the country to try to find some kind of connection with Saddam Hussein for convenience, for profiteering. And they did so, and they were able to paint that picture for the American public, which managed to get it passed into a war. Luckily, Canada stayed out of it because we could kind of see through this at the time. We weren't kind of as blindly rageful as they were and seeking vengeance, looking for anybody who could have been responsible. Yeah. And that's kind of how Bush was able to get them going that path. He, not him himself, but it's an administration. Like any president is just the sum of his team. Okay. And you look at the bunch of fucking characters that he had, like with Cheney, Rumsfeld.
It was definitely a mix mash of administration. Sure.
Some of the most duplicitous Americans living today, or of any administration ever. And that's directly how he was able to push his country in that direction. It was a stupid direction. It was a mistake. It caused the death of thousands of people. It cost them an economic uncertain, huge amounts. Like $1.9 trillion is an unthinkable amount of money for something that, for a war they thought they could win.
Yeah. All right.
That's my point.
Kevin, same thing. How is Ronald Reagan responsible for this failure? How did that happen?
The policies that just put people in jail, the mass incarceration of the American people.
Okay.
At any time you had any drug offense, you just went to jail. And that ruins lives. It ruins your economic viability for the future. And the States has the highest incarceration rates in the world. Mm-hmm. More than some of these places that we think are fucking evil. But the States...
They have more prisoners than China?
Yes.
Is that true? Yeah.
Yes.
Per capita.
Per capita.
China is more willing to shoot people in the head, though.
Very true.
Well, let's face it.
Actually, no, maybe not.
Those numbers are skewed because...
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
Guess I shouldn't be laughing about that. But...
You sick fuck. Anyway.
All
right, guys. We have to move this along. I think everybody had a very good argument for the most part, but the one that really stood out for me was the Federal Reserve Act. So I'm going to give it to Jeff.
I'm glad to know I got to win my own category.
I was thinking, actually, when I saw that question, thinking of coming in here and being like, Lincoln, freeing the slaves, and just to look at your faces, not knowing me.
Because I don't know. Well, that'd be great. And to our listeners, if you listen to the last episode, there was a question about that, and I don't know fuck all about Lincoln, and that was
you had to argue for Lincoln, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Sadly, because I was stupid enough to pick it.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the speed run, right? All right, let's move on, guys, because we really got to get moving here.
Yeah, we're at.
By the way, our speed
2
run,
hours now and 17 seconds.
Yeah, well, too fucking bad. They're gonna listen. They're gonna like it.
Now I know why it's so long. It goes by.
We're on.
Quickly.
Yes,
it really does, doesn't it? And hopefully that's the same experience that the audience gets. They're like, I turned this shit off an hour ago. Fuck this.
The only thing good is they can jump around. You can always skip to the next.
Yes.
thing.
When we're boring as fuck, clock, you can jump to the next index, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, that's certainly a good thing.
That's the only redeeming thing.
So let's liven this up a bit, boys. The wild card, I decided to kind of base it around a history question, but also a movie as well. Now, the question was, what was the best movie based around World War II? I tried to keep it as loose as possible because as long as you deal with that era within the movie, I don't give a shit how you did it, whether it was comedy, whether it was what. And honestly, I got a much better range than I thought I would get out of this. I thought everybody was going to go for the fucking Saving Private Ryans and all that stuff, right? And not a single person picked that, which was impressive in its own.
It's a shit movie.
Yeah. So now when I think best movie, I think best being entertaining, not necessarily value. Okay.
Okay,
so
most entertaining?
most entertaining to me.
That's really hard.
We're not gonna give that away just yet. But
So it's like us anticipating your answer almost.
fair enough.
Because someone picked. No.
Honestly, all three of the movies that you guys picked are all three movies that I enjoyed. So this is going to be a hard one for me because I look at every single one of these titles as being a movie that I enjoyed for a different reason. But they are all based on World War II scenario. So we're going to start with Jeff. So what was your pick on that one, Jeff?
I picked Enemy at the Gates, 2001.
Fantastic film. I liked it.
I love
It's
this
a good
movie. It's a true story, number one. It is one of the first movies that's a true sniper battle, which I think has been recreated quite a few times over the last few years with American
And that was kind of part of the intensity of it too.
Yes.
There was a lot of anticipation
right
in that movie.
I also picked it because it is one of the only movies that I can think of, especially Hollywood movies, that is about Stalingrad and that battle, which
True.
World War II, you know, we got a lot of these movies where they idolize the D-Day,
Normandy
like Normandy
invasion,
with Saving Private Ryan, which really the true war was fought by Russia versus Germany. And this movie actually shows you how harsh it was that the Russians shot their own, that they would do anything, and it was about the spirit, the overall love of motherland. If they could really get the people into the war, this movie really shows that. It's Khrushchev, and which is it really takes from real history, which is why I think, you know, overall based around World War II, it's really good. There's a few things wrong with it, but well, we won't go there. But
every movie on this list had something wrong with it.
Yeah.
I will tell you that for sure.
I think anytime you're doing a movie where, especially if it's, you know, if you're dealing with Germany or Russia, unless you do it in Russian, you're gonna have a few continuity errors, or you're gonna, you know. But why this one is the best by far is, like I said, it really depicts the true war, which I feel was Russia versus Germany, and
It felt authentic.
Felt authentic, and the true battle was that Stalingrad battle. If Germany, like they say it in the movie, if Germany wins that city, they win South Russia. They get all their industry, and Germany is
Make or break.
It's a make or break moment in World War II. So that's why I chose
Fair
it.
enough. All right, Dave, what was your pick?
My pick was Inglourious Bastards.
Sure was.
This movie is Tarantino's second highest grossing movie to date, only after Django Unchained. It won. It received more Academy Award nominations than anything else he's ever done. I think, including Pulp Fiction.
That's impressive.
It's an incredibly entertaining movie. It really brings that whole like getting back at the Nazis for the Holocaust thing to light. You know,
It was done in kind of a serialized style.
Serialized
kind of made
style.
it interesting.
It is like, I don't know. I think what the greatest thing.
It wasn't like a straight out revenge flick either. It was like
It's like
it's in
idea,
there, but you know,
like I need 8 Jewish American soldiers,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And killing the Nazis will be your mission. Like just like Brad Pitt, like the performances in it are so entertaining. It's so amazingly charismatic. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit fictionalized. It's not a true reenactment of what happened in World War II. It takes World War II and brings it into the modern age and gives it entertainment. And who better than Tarantino, one of the most stylized, celebrated auteur style type directors of our age.
I will say, when I found out that this movie was being made by Tarantino, I was like, what? Like it seems so out of the norm for him, but it really worked well. I agree. It was
Christoph Waltz who
Phenomenal.
who won Best Supporting Actor in that movie. He has to speak in 4 different languages in that film.
Yeah.
And he does it with such charisma. Every time he's on screen, you're just like, oh my god, he's so.
And the funny thing is, that's almost an introduction to him.
To America, to the American audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not really well known before that.
No, exactly.
And now he's playing.
And now you see him in tons of shit.
Now he's gonna be the next Bond villain.
Yeah.
Right, and it's mostly it's all can be traced back to his performance in this film.
Fair enough.
You know.
All right.
So my movie is the best. I don't even know what his movie is yet, but I know it's better.
He's got a very hard contender.
I really hope I don't have to argue against. I love that fucking movie.
It is. It really is. And you know what? Just to Jeff's point as well, Enemy of the Gates, in my opinion, is one of. It's definitely an authentic sniper-ish movie. Like it's. It's not the whole like I can gun a guy down from 3 miles away. All that bullshit. Like everything, even down to the breathing and all that shit. Like all that is portrayed, and the whole I can fake this guy out from across the area. That kind of thing. Here, let me put a helmet on his stick. That kind of stuff. Yep. All that shit is authentic. It did happen, right? So it's refreshing to see that on the screen, because it's not the modernized version of it where it's like the snipers can fucking run and gun at the same time, and these guys had to fucking sit in holes for 15 hours waiting for their target, shit like that, and it also brought that.
It shows you the really boring part of war.
You know what? I think that's an interesting part of war myself. I think it's a story that needed to be told, and I thought it was really well done. So, but Inglourious Bastards, I think, is. In a way, it's like a satire, but it's not. It's a really weird. It's a weird mix mash, but it's incredible.
It's Tarantino movie. They're in their own.
They are really. They have their kind of own genre.
Very different. Yeah. One is not really true to history, though. Let's be fair there.
No, but the question had nothing to do with whether it was true to history.
It wasn't the most historically accurate World War II movie.
No, I didn't. And I'll tell you right now, if it's historically accurate, Kevin's pick might actually win that one.
I'm curious to hear what it is.
But it's not a fair point here. Is that what you're saying? Is that not a fair point?
I think it's important, but I don't think it's the end-all be-all. Like, Inglourious Bastards definitely is not, it's not based on reality, but that's not what it's supposed to be.
I actually watched it with Ava, and he's like, so that's how Hitler died. I was like, wait.
No. That's not how Hitler died.
I almost picked the movie where Hitler dies, but I didn't.
Oh, the bunker one? Yeah. I can't remember the name of that. Downfall. Yeah, that was a good movie, though. Except for all the subtitles. But anyway, let's go on to Kevin's pick.
I picked Schindler's List. Because it is one of the only movies that I know of that shows the war from inside Germany.
It's true.
It's not just a rah-rah kind of American allied.
The gung-ho kind of...
Yeah.
Like Inglourious Bastards?
Well, to be fair, yes. But realistically,
they were in Germany, but that wasn't from the... I picked this movie because it showed... It was, I don't know if it was totally historically accurate.
I think there was a lot of parts that were, but I think there was some stuff that was...
I think it's half and half.
But it's...
but again, the question is about...
It showed the absolute worst and the best of people. In Arthur Schindler, you had the best. And in that fucking scene where the commander of that camp, I can't remember the name of it right now, but he gets up, grabs a gun, and then just shoots somebody. Mm-hmm. That was powerful to me.
Powerful image.
It's not even cruelty; it's just total and complete disregard. Mm. And that was one of the most powerful points of that movie for me. That sold it for me. I've never seen anything like it since. I also do like that it was all shot in black and white, because it made it feel like it was part of that time. Because all we ever see is black and white images from that time. I mean, there's very few colorized images from World War II. Mm-hmm. Most of what we see is black and white. And it told the story really well of what happened.
And cinematography-wise, it was a very well-done movie. Like, it's a pretty movie.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty
Probably
movie.
Spielberg's best movie.
And it had a lot of feeling
to
it. It was important. You could tell it was important to him.
It's definitely a great movie.
It's probably Spielberg's most artistic movie.
Definitely an artistic movie.
Yeah,
sure.
like in terms of not just making like a summer blockbuster.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to go back to Jeff. And the reason why we're going to go back to Jeff is because I think a lot of these guys hit their point a little bit better than you did to a degree. I want to hear a little bit more about your movie and what makes it represent World War II itself. Now, you mentioned, for instance, you mentioned earlier, it's the Stalingrad side,
Sure.
which is not depicted a lot, right? Like there is movies, obviously, but it's not depicted to the point of what these two guys are looking at.
Yep.
Kevin's being a little less so than Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds really is it's a mash of what it is.
It's a fun, entertaining,
It is
exciting movie.
When I watch a movie, I want to see a movie that's entertaining. Okay, and all three of these are entertaining in my opinion.
Yep.
Not Enemy at the Gates.
To be quite honest, I equally love every single one of these movies.
Oh my god, Enemy at the Gates is the most boring movie.
Why?
Because it's Ed Harris with a bad Russian accent for 2 hours.
Nah,
He doesn't even do an accent. He does an American accent.
he's not in the fucking movie half the time. Like,
Yeah,
That's why it's such a bad Russian accent.
Or no, he's
He's a German, and he does.
he's a German.
The thing,
German, yeah.
Okay, the thing, I'll just clarify.
It's a bad accent. You can't even tell what a
I'll
country is.
clarify the accents for that movie right now. In that movie, the accents, everyone does their own accents. So, like, it's not like they. So, Rachel Weisz, she's doing a British accent. Yeah. Like, so Ed Harris doing an American accent. What they do at the beginning of the movie, which a lot of movies do when they're trying to get it.
They start it off and then they bring it in.
They did Hunt for Red October, right?
They did Hunt for Red October.
Exactly. The Hunt for Red October experience.
That's
where
exactly what they did.
Everything's in fucking
The only-
Russian for a while, and then all of a sudden it just
Switches,
it switches just instantly, and you're there, right?
The only guy that put on an accent in that movie was Ron Perlman. And he decided to do a British accent for whatever reason. I think everyone else, Jude Law's doing a British accent, Rachel Weisz is doing a British accent.
He's like, fuck it, let's do a British accent.
So he's like, fuck it, I'm doing a British accent to make it look
So bizarre.
So anyway, that's not the point to why the movie is good.
I actually forgot he was even in it.
The movie is really good because you follow Vasily Zaitsev. This character is a great character, not only on screen, but in history. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but in Russia, he is like one of the most revered soldiers of all of their entire history. He, I think he got 250 German kills. This guy, and they really, tell his story justice. They get to a point with that movie where it starts off in Stalingrad, where you start watching people get killed left and right, and you just realize how lucky this guy is even to be alive. He gets cornered in a city center, and he's in a fountain, and with another guy played by Joseph Fiennes.
Yeah, I know him.
And he has a rifle. He has 5 bullets. He says, can I have the rifle? Puts the 5 bullets in it, kills 5 Germans immediately, and that's what starts this story of real triumph in Russia to fight back against Germany. It's something to hope for. This is what this whole movie's about. And that's really why I picked it, is because one, it depicts Stalingrad, but two, it depicts a sniper battle that was kind of like the inspiration for the Russian people, which, let's face it, basically won World War II. So that's why I chose it.
Fair enough. You mentioned that it's a 2-hour movie that's basically Ed Harris, right? Which isn't very accurate, and obviously you're being a little satirical there. But
Yeah. I have a little jest in there. I know he's not in the whole movie, right? He's like he's like more the villain.
He's got maybe 20 minutes there screen time.
He talks to the kid a lot. There's a little kid named Sasha, and he's
like trying to.
And he hangs him. Spoilers.
Yes.
Right, and I'm like, that's probably the only good moment in the movie. I gotta watch that movie.
When the kid dies is
it's the only moment in the movie
that explains why you picked Inglourious Basterds. He's like, unless somebody is kicking the fuck out of somebody with a baseball bat, it is not a movie worth watching. It's just I understand where you're coming from.
I remember watching it. I think I saw, what is that, like 2001, that movie or something? I'm just watching this movie, and it's not that it's
2001, yeah.
As a Canadian, I think I can appreciate a movie. I think, as all of us can say, it doesn't have to be about Americans doing American shit. We all are able to say, okay, there are other people in the world, and we like to see things from their perspective too. I think that's one of our strengths. And I'm watching this.
Technically a downfall for you, because the other two movies are about non-American things happening, whereas yours is about following
partially, but the whole story of Shoshana, Julie Dreyfus, who plays the proprietor of, she survives at the beginning. She's not American. So there are American characters. There's British characters.
Absolutely.
There's French and Germans and a whole bunch. That's what's so great about that movie. Using that auteur style. Enemy at the Gates to me is one of the most boring flicks I think I can remember of that year. I'm just like, this movie moves so slow. And there's
But
no.
that was kind of the whole point of it.
It's a sniper battle.
It's
movie.
a sniper battle. It's not supposed to be fast.
Not
it's supposed to be anticipation.
Not entertaining.
It's
not
that
entertaining.
anticipation line that he used earlier.
For baseball.
For baseball. It's all about the
You know,
anticipation.
in fairness, they're basically the exact opposite movies. Inglourious Bastards is ripping guys up like left, right, and center, whereas this.
But they are designed to be two different type of movies. Like
Inglourious Bastards is rock and roll. His is maybe classical music and the most like obscure Baroque composition that they can pull out.
Well, you made everybody speechless.
Wow, that was incredible. All right, let's go back to Kevin for a bit. Schindler's List is one of the most highly regarded movies based on World War II. I think we can all agree to that. It is a movie that a lot of movies since then have tried to mimic in a way. They're not going to do it, but it's the storytelling and the cinematography of that movie really defined what that movie was. It's like they even stole that shit in like X-Men movies, for Christ's sakes. There's scenes in there that are almost like camera for camera shot, same thing. You know, it's when they're talking about what is it, Magneto?
Oh, when he's in
the prison in the camps. You know, there's a scene in there that's very similar to a scene in Schindler's List. It's like it's not word for word or anything, but it's interesting to see that even that has. Got into the Marvel non-cinematographic.
I have a harder time arguing against Schindler's List.
What I like about Schindler's List is that it's not a war story.
No, it isn't.
It's a humanity story, and it's about an entire people having that humanity stripped from them. And I think that's why that scene that I was talking about is so powerful, because they were regarded as nothing.
Yep.
Sport. Something to just die.
Almost like
Not
that
even
horrible
worried.
Van Damme movie where he like had to like be hunted. Hard Target. You remember that? It was a terrible movie.
I can't
But it's the
believe
same
you
idea.
put Schindler's List and Hard
If
Target
anybody is
in
gonna
the same
if anybody is gonna fuck
That's
this debate up, it's gonna be
unbelievable.
me. All right.
Jody's number one for that.
Yeah. You know what? And I probably won't be invited back again. This is probably my last hurrah here. But that's just how it is.
No.
I know, I'm just kidding. But Schindler's List, and I agree with you. It's based around the World War II, obviously.
Yeah, it's based in World War II.
It's
It's not a war movie.
But it's not about war. It's about humanity, and I agree with you on that. And to your point with Enemy at the Gates, again, yeah, the war is the part of it, but it's almost like the guy struggled to do what he needs to do, but yet not do it. You know what I'm saying?
They can all be classified as World War II movies. I think the question for you is, what is the most entertaining film?
Entertaining
bring it
and
back
bad.
to the beginning to what's the most entertaining.
Yeah, and this is going to be a hard one because I found all three of them entertaining. Did I get a better chuckle out of one? Yeah, absolutely. Glorious Bastards is definitely a funnier fucking movie than the other two. Like Schindler's List,
They're not funny at
There's
all.
not-
Our two movies.
your movie is
I thought you were
really
gonna lose.
like
If you're laughing at Schindler's List, there is a fucking problem.
there is a real problem with you. You're like comedy. Fuck, that was hilarious.
What a knee slapper that Schindler's List is.
But when I look at movie based around World War II, best movie to me means an entertaining movie. It doesn't necessarily mean is it the funniest movie.
No.
Does it necessarily mean is it the most historically accurate movie? Sure.
I think it's what are you most glued to the screen wanting to watch it.
Yeah. What is the most compelling movie to watch? I guess is a good way to look at it. That being said, out of the three movies that have been picked, if I had to go for most compelling, Inglourious Bastards is not it. Okay, and it really isn't. It's not a movie that I have to sit there and keep watching. I can turn it off, come back to it an hour later. I'm still happy with that. Schindler's List, couldn't stop watching it. It was one of those things that you're now engulfed in this world. You're like, oh fuck. Same thing I found, even though I know you're not going to agree with me. I did find that with Enemy at Gates as well. It was an interesting story. It was a nice perspective to something that we don't really see that often. It kept me thinking I want to keep watching it. That being aside, do I need to see it again? I own it. It's a movie that I do go back to every so often. Glorious Bastards, I own that. I go back to it every so often. Do I need to? Not really, but it's still a fucking Tarantino movie, and it's a fantastic movie. Plain and simple. But is it the best movie out of the three? No. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take Inglourious Bastards out of the list. Okay, so I'm sorry, Dave. He just gave me the panda sad
So
face.
defeated.
He's like, fuck this Jody guy. He better never win again. And this guy's a douche. All right. It comes down to Schindler's List and Enemy of the Gates. Between the two movies, they're both compelling stories in their own right. if I was stuck with only having to have one of those two movies to represent World War II to a degree, or at least based upon it, I would still give it to Schindler's List. And the reason being is because it's a very powerful movie, and it is not centered around... The war motif is a little bit more predominant in Enemy of the Gates as it is to Schindler's List, but obviously it's there. I fucking hate black and white movies, though. I really fucking hate them. I live in a world of color. I was born in a world of color. I don't really need it to be in black and white. That's the only thing that pissed me off about that entire movie. The rest of it was fantastic.
I think the black and white adds to the movie.
It does.
It doesn't
add
add to most movies.
No,
but it does add to the movie because it makes it feel like it's more.
Well, and we can look at that from a movie that we all cherish and love, which is Clerks.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a movie that was shot in black and white for various reasons.
Color temperature.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, if that movie was in color, would we feel any different about it?
Maybe.
You think so?
Certain things about that movie, yeah. I think the thing is with Clerks, it wasn't. I don't know. I don't think it was as intentional of a black and white movie as
Schindler's was totally intentional.
We're off the track here with Clerks, but I to tell you the truth, I think Clerks. Again, it goes down to the feel of the movie, and I think that made it feel more of an independent movie.
It made it feel more
that made it more
punk rock.
Yeah. And I guess in a way that's what
they're using.
That's what Schindler's List did to me too. I guess Schindler's List made me feel like I was watching something that was too old for me to be watching, but it was almost like watching archival footage as opposed to a movie. Which I guess is a turnoff for some people, but let's go down to the library and look up some archival footage, But I think between the two movies, I think Schindler's List is a more powerful movie. I think it's a more entertaining movie if you're into that. But Enemy of the Gates, in my opinion, was still a fantastic movie. I enjoy it. Inglourious Basterds, same thing.
I know I haven't won, but I don't know where you're going.
Okay, what I'm going with this on it is Inglourious Basterds to me is a movie that you can take that exact type of premise, throw it into any other scenario like that, like World War I. You could put it in the Iraq War, for Christ's sakes. You would still have an entertaining flick, right? But that doesn't make it a good based World War II movie, in my opinion. It wasn't just about World War II for that movie. It was about obviously the relationships between the characters as well as, how they handled the situation. And it was done in a different style. Schindler's List was representative of what happened during that time period. Same thing with Enemy at the Gates. In my opinion, to a slightly lesser degree, it was a little bit more Hollywood than, let's say, Schindler's List, even though Schindler's List obviously has much better budget. Yeah, but I'm going to have to give the point in this case. I'm going to give it to Kevin at this point.
Schindler's List.
What's that
Schindler's
score
List.
then? What's the score for that?
Jeff, you have 2 points. Dave has 1 point, and Kevin has 3 points. So Kevin wins the major round. All right, we're back for the speed round. Our speed round will consist of 6 questions. Hopefully, a lot quicker than the last 6 questions, and I'm going to try to make that happen.
So am I out?
Yeah.
You're out, but I'm going to use you for kind of a
sounding
judge
board
as well. Okay,
so I'm going to listen.
Yeah, you're going to be the guy that's going to give me your version of the opinion as well as mine, and then from there we can kind of decide which way we're going to go.
All right,
okay?
I'm with you.
So speed round, movies. Which is the better Saturday Night Live sketch-based movie? The Blues Brothers or Wayne's World? Wayne's World, he gets it. So you're going to argue Blues Brothers. You spoke up first. Tell me why Wayne's World is the better movie.
Wayne's World is just hilarious from start to finish. Those characters are really funny. They've really built a great world in Peoria, Illinois. Just the thought of building a TV show from your mom's basement and just shooting the shit about whatever comes up to you that week. The character of both Wayne and Garth are just really, really funny. And I don't know, what else do you want to know? That's it. That's all I got.
Jake and Elwood, man, they're absolutely the best duo for comedy. The 2 brothers running across the country to pay the debts of a nunnery. Like it's just
ridiculous.
So ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's more ridiculous than starting a show out of your parents' basement. I mean, we're doing a podcast that's almost the same.
Except for not in Dave's basement.
Way before that's time, though. In fairness to Winslow.
True.
All right, Dave.
I got nothing
What do you
else.
feel?
I don't know.
Well, Jeff kind of just told you what what Wayne's World was about. So.
And the funny thing I thought about Jeff's answer was, I didn't differentiate it from the movie versus the skit. Nothing he said really made any difference.
Like Kevin,
he expanded on the fact that obviously they made the universe a little bit farther.
Honestly, I would have liked to have heard a little bit more from either one, not just like speaking time, but more like points. And
I would have liked to heard a little bit more about Blues Brothers,
round.
As in the actors in Blues Brothers. I would have liked to hear about. You did hit the whole Garth and Wayne thing.
If I have to say who actually made the better argument, it was Kevin.
It was Kevin.
But you're the judge. That's your call.
Oh no,
I'm just a third party.
I'm going to do a quick question back and forth. 30 seconds. Why is Blues Brothers more an influential movie to the Saturday Night Live? I guess, what do you want to call it? You know what I'm talking
Legacy?
about. Legacy, there you go. Why is it more important to Saturday Night Live than, let's say, Wayne's World?
I don't know that it is. I think they're both pretty equally important to the legacy of Saturday Night Live.
Same question.
Okay, I'll just stay with this. The 40th anniversary special was last month. They finished with a Wayne's World skit. That was the last skit they did, and they spent 10 minutes solid on it. And
Yeah. But in fairness, John Belushi is dead. So they can't really
it's a little bit harder.
With the Blues Brothers.
He's got a good point.
And no matter how hard John Goodman tries, he is not a Blues Brother. He just sucks.
No,
what about the other Belushi?
Also sucks.
Wayne's World, Chris Farley was in Wayne's World, and it's one of my favorite characters Chris Farley ever played. Was when he's
he was
it's in Wayne's World 2, but does that count?
Yeah,
John Candy's in.
We're talking about Wayne's World.
He's the like a security.
He's like the bouncer, right?
Yeah, he was the bouncer in the first one because he's the guy that shows him out to the limo, right?
I just remember him from Wayne's
He's
World 2.
going across the.
Go across that thing. Yeah, I just always
doing the
remember Wayne's World 2 where he's running to pick up the microphone and they're hitting him with tennis balls.
Oh yeah, he's the roadie kind of guy. Yeah. All right. Well, after all that debate, I think I'm going to give it to the Blues Brothers. I just think he was a little bit more.
I would have argued, I'm surprised. He made a couple of good points. Jeff almost took it back from me, where he was like, they finished with the Wayne's World skit. I was like, oh my god, that's great.
Yeah, but in all fairness, they couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it.
They did do a Blues Brother one. It sucked. They brought out John Belushi.
But that kind of shows you.
No, they didn't bring it. If they brought out John Belushi, then you know why it sucked.
That'd be
Jim Belushi, his brother.
I was wrong. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah.
All right.
Without John Belushi.
But the thing with the Belushi thing was that it was a musical skit. Right, it was never a comedy skit. It was just they came out and did like a performance, and then they're like, "Let's make a movie," and then they.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on, guys. Television. Which Star Trek television series is better, Voyager or DS9?
DS9.
Son.
It's not even close.
It isn't even close. Fuck.
Try. Never know. You can give it a try.
It's not even close.
I'll tell you right now, you're going to get points if you mention 7 and 9.
Come on, try.
Anyway, go ahead.
DS9 was the most hip Star Trek show ever. It's the best of all of them.
Yes, it is.
It's one of the...
Throw in the towel!
It's the only Star Trek...
Are you throwing in the towel there?
Absolutely.
All right. We're giving it to you.
It's like fourth on the whole all-time.
I cannot argue against
Originally,
DS9.
I was going to do this
There's no
question.
way.
I was going to do this question as DS9 versus Next Gen.
Okay.
And that would have been a little bit of a harder argument, but...
Could have at least
I would have rather heard that one.
I could have at least made an argument, maybe, for Next Gen, but
I
not
could-
Voyager. Jesus Christ!
Voyager
I
was
recently
terrible.
tried to watch that.
It's not that bad.
It's just,
I
it's
like
not after
Enterprise more than
DS9.
Voyager.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Enterprise was
Enterprise
fun.
is unwatchable.
We got into this. What was
Absolutely
the first episode?
unwatchable.
It wasn't unwatchable until the third
Unwatchable.
season.
If you had done Voyager or
There's
Enterprise,
maybe
I think you
2
would have.
episodes.
It doesn't. It's dead to me. It doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Voyager and
I
Enterprise,
wanna-
you'd be like, fuck you both. All right, anyway. Music. You have an opportunity to sit and have a drink with a songwriter. Who would be more enjoyable to have a drink with and a deep conversation with? Johnny Cash or David Bowie?
Johnny Cash.
I'll go David Bowie.
All right. Johnny Cash gets it first. Let's hear
There's not even a question.
But why? Why would you want to talk to him?
Because he's Johnny fucking Cash. I don't know. I don't know why.
What would be enjoyable about the conversation with him? What do you think?
Just his life is fucking amazing, and his fuck.
What would you ask him?
I don't know. It just I can't even make
All right,
an argument.
we're
I
gonna
can't
go with
even
David
make
Bowie
an
now.
argument. I can't even make
I
an
think with
argument.
David Bowie, I think you could really talk about Ziggy Stardust, right? Was his character?
One of them,
Yeah, and I think I would ask him just like, what was it like to personify, be someone on stage completely who are different from who you are in personal life. I'd ask him what life in the 80s was like, because I didn't really grow up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s.
Tail end. Yeah.
Tail end. And I just think he was one of the most iconic singers of that era, if that's saying much for I think, I don't know.
He's one of the only things I thought was good about the 80s.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. And with Johnny Cash, I think you might get him on a bad day. So, you might get him on a... he might, smash a
On
beer
one of them
bottle over
hurt
your
days.
face. Whereas I think David Bowie, I would also talk to him about, he's in The Prestige, is one of my favorite movies. He
I
plays
don't
Tesla.
even think David Bowie would have much to say.
Not only that, but David Bowie was also in that fucking movie with Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah.
Labyrinth?
Labyrinth.
Yeah, and then
yeah.
he knows Jim Henson. I would also ask him about Jim Henson. So I could get tons of cool information.
I think Jeff should get it just because of the fact that he would have
I
questions.
Google shit about Jim Henson.
Yeah. He's got questions.
Kevin
So-
just
I got
would be
nothing.
like,
No, I got
you're
nothing.
Johnny Cash.
You're fucking Johnny
That's
Cash. To honestly though, if I had to pick between the two, I don't know what you would feel.
Like who I would want to talk to?
I would want to talk to Johnny Cash,
Sure, but I would have a reason.
but I would have at least a question. So we're gonna have to burn you on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Goes to Jeff.
Goes to Jeff for sure.
Okay.
All right, sports. You get to be mentored.
Fuck.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't worry, history and a wild card's coming after this. You get a chance to be mentored by a famous hockey player. Who do you pick?
Bobby Orr.
Okay, well, I have to give you the two
Oh.
answers if you're
Oh,
okay with that.
okay.
And Bobby Orr is not on the
All
fucking
right,
list.
fair
so-
enough. I thought it was one of those you just pick.
Wayne Gretzky, Yadimir Yager.
Not Wayne Gretzky.
Kevin's like, who?
Same. It's my Johnny Cash answer.
So you're just going to concede Gretzky in
Yeah,
this
I
scenario?
got
Okay,
no
fair
idea.
enough. Jeff gets it.
No idea.
All right.
Sports is not my thing.
All right, that was a forfeit.
I had to be fair, though.
Yeah.
So you have to get this next one, or you're done.
Okay.
History. Who is the best general during World War II out of these two picks? Erwin Rommel, and I always fuck up his name, Georgy Zygov. Zygov? Red Army. Zygov.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I know literally nothing.
I don't know who these two people are.
Really?
If you would pick
I
Pat,
I think this question-
If I pick Pat, and everybody would fucking
I
have an
have
answer.
heard
Douglas
the only one
MacArthur
I've
would have
heard
been
of
one.
Rommel, so that's what I'm saying. Rommel because I've heard of him,
What?
Okay.
and I haven't heard of the other guy.
I'm picking the Russian guy
All right. Why?
because that guy must have been a man to win that, to be a general of the fucking Russian army. That was not an easy task.
Yeah, but my guy, at least you've heard of him.
Over 100
At
million.
least one of us at the table has
Tell me
heard
s-
of Rommel.
Tell me something about him. I don't know anything about him.
Neither do I. I know his name. Which is more than I could say for the other guy.
It was an interesting question. Zoinov, I would go just the fact that if you're a general in the Red Army, you got some balls, and just in general, the man of
Rommel
people,
was known as the Desert Fox. He was a very good.
What's your guy's name?
Rommel.
Rommel.
Spell.
Which
No idea.
German.
R-O-M-E-L.
German,
He's not
yeah.
Germany. Yeah. My God, boys, I'm a little disappointed on both of you.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
Well, that's
I
going
don't
to be
know a ton about
thing.
German.
I'm gonna give it to Kevin just because he actually picked an answer. that's
Fair enough.
that's really what I'm gonna do, which keeps Kevin in the game for now.
Okay. All right. So this is for all the marbles.
This is for it. Wild card question: the best movie that Kevin Smith both appeared in and directed.
And is it one or the other, or just a?
No, in this case, you can pick whatever
The
you want.
best movie, Chasing Amy.
Chasing Amy. What about you?
Dogma.
Oh fuck! This is gonna be
Jeff
interesting.
Jeff goes
Jeff
first.
goes first.
Oh, Chasing Amy is his best movie, I think, period, that he wrote and directed. It is,
And appeared in.
and he appeared in, and his scene in Chasing Amy is fantastic.
Yeah,
You
'cause
know?
it's the silent scene, right? It's
Yeah.
he's just sitting there at the table, and then all of a sudden
He
he
busts out
sprouts
that
out.
You're chasing Amy.
You're chasing Amy.
He busts out that story and
Silent Bob speaks.
tells Jay to shut the fuck up. And
The third time in 3 movies.
But just
For the great time. Yeah, he speaks in every fucking movie, but whatever.
but we're judging this based on what is the best movie he wrote, directed, and appeared in, right?
Yes.
So I think wrote and directed. Chasing Amy is just such a fantastic story, and the way it is shot.
Well, to be clear, it's appeared in and directed, not necessarily wrote.
Oh, not necessarily wrote. It's just appeared and directed. In. Okay, so yeah, but either way, I would still pick Chasing Amy. It's just such a fantastic story about one guy who's struggling between his best friend and his new love and writing comics or drawing comics.
Fucking Tracer.
He's a fuck. No, not him.
Not him.
Not Holden McNeil.
No.
But just overall, that Chasing Amy, I think, is his best film out of his whole catalog, especially in the View Askew universe. And I think, just with Kevin Smith's scene.
Rebound of Mallrats.
Well, yeah, that's true. It is a rebound after Mallrats. But I wouldn't even make that point. I just think
Almost
overall...
better help him,
Mallrats.
too.
I love
Oh,
it.
help him too.
Overall, it stands out. It's different than any other of his movies as well. I just think
Right.
it's really, sets a way better tone for his writing and filmmaking.
Dogma.
I think
Thumbs up.
Dogma stands out more than any of his other movies. I love it. It speaks to me because it's kind of a big fuck you to religion. It kind of exposes.
It isn't, but yeah.
It exposes all the kind of ridiculousness of religion, and it's just fucking funny. Like you've got Alan Rickman as the Metatron, Chris Rock, the 13th Apostle, Rufus. Like, come on, that's awesome.
And the best thing is his name was Rufus. Like you couldn't get more of a stereotypic name than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Jesus?
And,
No, nigger owes me $13.
pound for pound, it's got to be his best movie for laughs, just for nonstop friggin' laughs in that movie.
You think it's beat for beat funnier?
Yes,
definitely a funnier movie.
Yes,
But was Chasing Amy supposed to be all funny?
No,
I don't think it was.
I would say with Chasing Amy, it is by far his best movie for emotional investment. You're invested in those characters more than all the other characters because there's less laughs. Just to go to that point, I think when you do laugh, it's really fun.
Well, there's I think the most
Dogma, you're not emotionally invested.
the most
that's for sure.
I don't think so. I think Dogma has the scene where she runs away from the campfire and she finds out she's the last Zion.
Oh, and she ends up in like the water.
In the water, and she's like, "Why? Why?"
Yeah, she gets all pissy about it. Yeah.
And she starts having that pissy fit, and then Metatron walks out, Alan Rickman, and he's walking on the water, and he's like,
What else are you gonna do?
I had to say the same thing to Jesus Christ, and I had to tell a 13-year-old boy he was the Son of God, and he was going to have to die. It wasn't fair, but I had to do it. It's my job as an angel.
I like it just because it exposes the ridiculous.
That's probably the most emotional moment of Dogma. Maybe the scene with Affleck where he kind of snaps and turns on Matt Damon's character, Loki. Yeah. Right, where he was like, he kind of realizes he can never go home, right, because it will end existence, and he just goes nuts.
All right.
So that
my favorite scene in that movie is when they're in the gun store picking out guns and they're talking about mass genocide and everything, and the guy's just
Jeff Anderson, yeah.
Jeff Anderson, yeah.
And with Chasing Amy, definitely more. It's kind of the other side of the spectrum where it's more emotional, and laughs are how it kind of starts. Like the movie starts off as funny.
Oh, it is funny.
Yeah,
It's a funny movie.
But then it ends. It's a tragedy. It's the only one of his series I can say is a true tragedy.
It's one of those movies that when it ends, you're like, "Fuck!" Like we're ending it like this. Like what are we doing? Where Dogma, yeah, it was kind of a fuck you at the end, but it was a fuck you with a nice yay at the end.
What was the fuck you at the end of Dogma?
Not really a fuck you. It exposes the ridiculousness of religion.
Yeah.
Like it's not really fuck you religious people, but it's
it's not.
It's like
when I say
this
fuck
is
you,
kind of silly. What you
I
do.
thought it was all about the Alanis Morissette haters, and just telling them like, "Hey, she's good. She's God."
Well, she's got to get over it.
That's the big fuck you at the end of the movie.
Maybe that is the big fuck you. He's got a good point. So this one's going to be a really tough one for me. So I want to ask Jeff another quick question. What, in your opinion, because we've actually heard what a lot of the really good scenes were in that movie.
Sure.
What do you feel was the best scene in Chasing Amy? Like, what do you feel is the one that really sealed the deal for that whole movie?
I think the one I really pops out to me is the movie, the scene where they go to the hockey game and they're leaving the hockey game. They're in the van and it's raining, and she gets really upset at him. I forget exactly what she asks him about, but
Why?
Yeah.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
I am fucking gay.
Yes, exactly.
And you just dropped that bullshit on me?
Yeah,
Exactly.
because he's like, I want to, for lack of a better term, I want to get in your pants.
Yeah, like I'm in love with you.
Yeah, I'm in love with you and I want to get in your pants, right?
Yeah.
Right, and she's kind of like, hey, look, like, I'm gay. How dare you even go there with me? And she gets out of the van and she starts walking in the rain, and he chases her, and that whole scene really encapsulates the whole movie. I feel like
Kind of a chick scene, though, when you think about it.
Totally is, but I think Kevin Smith does it total justice.
It's maybe one of the best scenes Kevin ever wrote and directed.
Yeah, this is true. That's true.
If you want me to give you another scene, I think the scene at the beginning when they're at a bar and they're explaining, like Jason Lee's explaining all the stuff with when you went down on a girl and the girl's legs were in between,
the jaw scene.
The jaw scene, yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff is just gold, and the beats and the writing are just as good as Dogma, if not better. And they, I just think the overall story of Chasing Amy is so tight. It's so good, scene to scene, and it just really makes you focus on these three characters, and really the only other two characters that come in are Jan's. So
yeah, okay.
Well,
give me your best scene, because I'm still kind of on the fence on this one. I can go either way. What's the best scene that you feel in Dogma? Like you mentioned a couple of them. What is the pinnacle scene of that movie?
I like when they go into the movie headquarters and just start shooting everybody,
just judging
and
everyone,
judging everybody. And he's doing it's the scene where he's going around the table, and it's like
doing this.
Yeah, went. He flew to Thailand to have sex with an 11-year-old boy.
Damon's got the fucking points going on, and he's just like, yeah, bitch,
Yeah. That's probably my...
See, for me, my favorite scene in that movie was still when he offs the guy on the bus, and then he gets off the bus.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Whose
Are
house?
you married? Not that it's in
Ron's
house! Say what?
in that movie, I like the opening scene in the airport where Damon's
where they're just talking.
Fucking with
that's
that.
a good scene.
I think that's the best writing.
Yeah,
in
that
movie.
is actually really...
All right, Dave, I want to hear your opinion on this.
I don't know, this is tough.
Because it's hard, because honestly, I'm on the fence on both, because you guys both made very good points. I kind of want to hear what Dave
You're
has.
basically just asking which is the better movie. And
Well, I'm asking more on who do you think had the better argument here, because I'm kind of on the fence.
for me, it's pretty even. They both bring up the best points of both movies. So,
all right, let's mix it up quickly just for a second. Maybe this will... What's the worst point in your movie, you think?
Tough. There's really the worst. I would say maybe
something that's not necessary to the story, you think? Or something that didn't need to be there?
sometimes, just sometimes, I like the idea of a girl with a horse.
We know, Dave, but we're talking about something else.
maybe I'm trying to think exactly like what would be the least, because every scene in that movie I feel like really tells the story. Whereas Dogma kind of jumps around a lot, which isn't a bad thing, but it's Chasing Amy. The worst scene, I don't know, maybe when she's singing, but I think that part's really important too.
Where she's in the Mexican
Song.
bar
They give 2 minutes or 3 minutes to that.
Yeah, that was a little...
It's probably the worst part of the movie
It probably is.
because it doesn't need to be as long as it is.
Fair enough. Dogma, where do you think is the
Worst part of the movie?
Yeah.
Fighting the shit demon.
That was pretty terrible.
It's awful.
It was pretty terrible. Yeah.
It's just awful. It's not good.
I'm going to give the point.
And the game.
And the game. I'm going to give it to Jeff.
All right.
I do think you made the better.
I think he made the better argument. It was a hard one because both those movies are very dear to me. I think between the two, I enjoyed Dogma more, but that's only because I enjoy the content more.
I enjoy Dogma more.
But Chasing Amy,
I enjoy Chasing Amy.
I think Chasing Amy was a very different movie,
Yeah.
and it was out of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It still had a lot of stuff that we like and love, but it's that movie that's a little bit different.
Chasing Amy feels more real. I don't know how else to put it.
Dogma's adventure.
Well, Dogma's
kind of like
it's not real. Like,
Dogma's kind of like a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's an adventure. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good way of putting it. It's an adventure.
It's getting closer to what Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was, which was
just
kind of
fucking
ridiculous,
ludicrous.
like an acid trip.
Yeah, it was a Cheech and Chong movie made modern.
And Mallrats is kind of follows that same vibe, whereas Chasing Amy and Clerks have the most in common of being kind of grounded in real life.
There, but between
problems.
the two of them, I still think Chasing Amy wins it when it comes to grounded. I think it's the most realistic of the movies in that scenario, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, either way, I think we're at the end. Congratulations.
Well, we finished 18 minutes earlier than normal.
Did we? Did we seriously?
We're 2 hours and 22 minutes in.
Wow.
2.5 hours long.
I'm going to go down in history as the guy who made it happen.
8 minutes in.
I am now the standard.
Not if you don't shut up.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, and that's basically how they feel. So on that note, I think we're
Jeff
gonna sign
Mader,
off.
winner of episode 3. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jeff. So please join us again. We're on iTunes. We're on
We're
YouTube.
on iTunes. We have a Facebook page now. We now have a Google Plus page.
We have a Google Plus page. Does
Yeah,
anybody even use that?
Well, I just set it up. But we're working on it.
I use it.
You found it?
I use.
You're supposed
Oh,
to.
you're
You're
not
supposed to say, yeah, it's a freaking great page.
Well, I didn't know till right now.
Well,
Some people use
we have an advertising problem.
I mean, if
here.
you really want me to get my phone,
I think you should do that.
I wasn't debating the merits of whether Google Plus was good. I'm just saying it's there.
That's another debate for another day, boys.
It's a hard one too.
We're not
All right.
debating that right now because we will go over for sure.
All right, I'm Dave Mader.
I'm Jeff Mader.
Kevin Millard.
And I'm Jody Simpson, the host for this episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And yeah, piss off and come back later. There you go.
Especially Jim Meadows.
Yeah, fuck Jim. And Dylan, if you're listening, electricity!